Hello and welcome to the first episode of the West Yorkshire Football Show on the Route 1 Show channel. Coming up on the show, we're going to be taking a look at our teams across the region here in West Yorkshire. We'll be speaking to journalists and fans about Leeds United, Huddersfield Town, Bradford City, and also casting an eye across our non-league teams as well. So we'll be looking at Halifax Town, Bradford Park Avenue, Farsley, Guiseley and Liversedge as well. Please remember to like the video and also subscribe for more content on all our teams here in West Yorkshire. I'm Stephen Brown and I'm joined by Chris Bell. Chris, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not too bad. It's been a little while, but yeah, how's things?
Good. Yeah, really good. Excellent. Yeah, really good, mate. Really good. Excited for the first show. But we're going to crack on anyway. And I'm delighted to say we're going to get Simon Parker from the TNA in now. Simon, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, not so bad. I apologise for wearing black. It looks like I'm sort of hovering in the air somewhere, but yeah.
We're all wearing black. Look at us. It's like a funeral in here. I mean, we are talking about Bradford City, but even so, it's a bit much, isn't it? Simon, we spoke last week and we kind of joked about the potential banana skin that was Barrow, and it proved to be. Just how bad was it?
Well, as someone confidently predicted last week, that there's no way that City would lose that game. So obviously they did without having a shot on target. But yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, the frustrating thing is, once again, it was an open goal opportunity. You know, we've had this several times this season where they've won a couple of games in a row. They've got that momentum building and then they blow up. You know, the first time it happened was to Northampton, which is understandable because they're up there. Second time was to Rochdale. I'm sure Chris will remember that game. You know, and Rochdale have done absolutely knack all since.
I was about to say we haven't won since, so yeah.
No, exactly. So it's one of them where, that was a complete cock up. And Saturday as well. I mean, Barrow, they've had a decent season, Barrow, and up to the last sort of, up to Christmas, they were up there in the playoff zone. But obviously they hadn't won in six before this, and they came to try and dog it out and get something. And of course they did. They did a very efficient job, scored a goal, had one of only two shots on target, and then basically never looked threatened. I mean, and that was the most annoying thing about Saturday was once Barrow went in front, you never really sensed City would come back. They didn't ever go at him. The keeper didn't ever save to make. And on the back of two great results last week leading up to that game, it was just a complete mystery and very, very frustrating.
Yeah, and 78 possession and no shots on target. I mean, that's mind-boggling, isn't it?
I've got a thing about possession stats. I mean, people talk about, oh yeah, they've dominated the ball, and it's what you do with it, though, isn't it? And the game plan obviously is to try and draw teams in and then play round them or play through them, but they were just playing in front of them, and the Barrow had three centre halves. Niall Canavan, who we know from Valley Parade, very strong in the air, powerful defender, but he's not mobile. And there were sort of three, and three of them basically sat on the edge of their penalty area, just blocking balls and heading them away. There was no chance to expose them, getting behind them. It was pretty poor. It was the fact that Barrow didn't really seem to have to break sweat to win the game, which was what the most frustrating thing was.
Yeah, and the crowd let it be known how they felt about it as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean,
half-time and full.
Exactly. We've had a few issues where there's been boos, and sometimes you think, oh, come on, it's all right, it's not brilliant, but it's League Two football, and sometimes you just got to suck it up when it's not great games to watch. But yeah, Saturday quite totally justified. It was very poor, and it was just I mean, you look at the league table, they're still in the same place. They're still a point off the playoffs, so they're still very much in it, but had they got those 3 points, they'd be right and slap back in the middle of it. And same thing with Rochdale. Once again, the opportunity to get right into the midst of it and really get in there has been blown. And it's been blown against teams, who when you're at the top like they are or they want to be, you've got to be beaten, particularly at home.
What is it about the system or the team? I mean, I know we talked last week about the issues with the system and everything, but what are they just not doing to get these games over the line? What seems to be happening? Is it energy? Is it tactics? Well, I mean, where would you point your finger at it?
I think it's just got to be quicker, sharper passing. There's too much sort of side to side at times. All right, you're trying to sort of draw the opposition out, and which works. In the Tranmere game, it worked because Tranmere, certainly when they went ahead, Tranmere had to chase them. And of course, so they bring them out and they pass around them, and then you get that incisive through pass to create the opportunity. But there was none of that on Saturday. I mean, away from home, their away record, I think it's points per game is the third best in the division. So that's automatic promotion form away from home because teams have to come onto them. Yeah. But when you get someone who sit back and basically put banks of 4 or in Barrow's case a bank of 7, it's very difficult to find a way through. And there was no real sort of incisiveness. I think what summed it up was Jamie Walker, who's probably one of the most creative attacking players they've got. He was having to sort of drop back into his own half to pick the ball up, So even if he was going anywhere with the ball, he was that far from goal, so he couldn't have a shot. And it just seemed to be very sort of passive and tepid, and it was almost an acceptance that it wasn't going to happen. And it was a big open goal missed.
Just how has it been such a problem though? Because I mean, it's literally been 7 months into the season we are, and I remember after the opening day of the season, was it Doncaster, right in thinking that they came and sat back and were, took a point away, if I'm right in remembering. How is it though that we are 7 months on and Bradford's Valley Parade hoodoo is still going on?
I know it's. I mean, they set the template, didn't they? If you want to come and just, if you want to take on City at Valley Parade, or if you want to get something from City at Valley Parade, just sit there. Put everyone behind the ball and say, right, let's see what you can do. And it's That first day, I remember Mark Hughes saying after that, we're going to have to be better than that. We're going to have to conquer that sort of thing because teams are going to come and do it. And teams have kept coming to do it. And they haven't conquered enough of them. I mean, you can look at, I think New Year's Day when they beat Salford was a belting game, 3-2, end-to-end, fantastic match. But there haven't been too many fantastic home games. The away games have been good, but the home games, a lot of them have been a bit passive because the opposition don't want to come and play because they know that if they don't come and play, then City, more often than not, will find it quite hard to break him down. And it's, you look at, I keep going back to Tyreek Wright, what a great player he was in that short time they had him. And you don't have missed players like that. You need someone who's got to be direct, run at them and just sort of try and open teams up a little bit. At the moment you've got, I think Scott Banks is coming back in and I think he's going to be a big player. Hopefully Harry Chapman will sort of rediscover his buzz again. Because he can, one of those players who can take teams on and open them up, and get Jamie Walker further up the pitch because they've certainly got the players to do it, no doubt about it. That squad is a top 7 / top 3 squad without a doubt.
Yeah.
So it's they are making. I was talking to someone earlier saying they are making progress, but it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back each time. So rather than sort of making strides up the table or strides towards the playoff pack, they're inching towards it. And that's the frustration. It just keeps. It's almost like there's sort of like a handbrake still on and they can't really sort of get going.
How much does the crowd come into this? Because I remember vividly, for example, the Rochdale game that was a frustration for Bradford and Valley Parade seemed to turn quite quickly. There was a lot of moans and groans anyway around the seats, around the press box pretty early on when it was still 0-0. How much does that factor into it in terms of kind of when things don't go well, understandably, frustrations can come out.
Yeah, I think that's the downside of having such big crowds, isn't it? It can be such a powerful force behind you when you've got the momentum, but when it's against you and things aren't going right and the dissension, it can build quite quickly. And it can seem very loud. I mean, it's understandable people are frustrated because you look at the home record. I mean, I've done a thing on Mark Hughes this week because obviously it's his anniversary in charge 1 year on Friday, and he's had 23 league home games and won 8 of them. Which is basically it's a figure that's been basically mirrored previous managers. Since Stuart McCall's team were unbeaten in 2017, and even then there were quite a few draws in that team. But since that year, that the home record has been almost like that. It was 1 win in 3, and it's so if you're a season ticket holder, you don't. If you don't season ticket holder don't go to away games, you don't see that many wins.
Yeah,
you can go 2 or 3 months without seeing a win, and you can understand why. If games don't start great or they fall behind, that frustration bubbles to the surface quite quickly. But because it's sort of it's a thing, it's snowball effect basically of previous frustrations. Nothing that 3 wins in a row at home couldn't sort out, but each time they might win a couple, and then just when you think this is it, the sort of the gremlins reappear.
How's he doing on his report card then? If you had to grade him, what are you giving Hughes now? He's racked up a year in charge.
Yeah, I think a B. I think not a B plus, a B. Because it's going the right way, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
You know, you look at when he took over this time last year, they were 10 points off the playoffs, 16 off automatic, and basically no momentum, no goals. Everything was flat. You know, and now they're 1 point off the playoffs, aren't they? And was it in a handful off the automatics with games in hand? You know, so from that point of view, there's been progress. You know, the squad is much better than it was 12 months ago, and sort of around the club there seems to be a bit more. You know, there's more unity. And you know, we talk about the boos and the frustration, but generally, you know, compared to the situation went, you know, towards the end of Derek Adams' reign, it's certainly progressed, but maybe not progressed as much as people would have liked. But you know, as we keep saying, it's a long season, and it's still 16 games to go. You know, we'll have to go back and look at this again in May. You certainly, if they don't finish in the top 7 in May, I'd sort of say by the players he's brought in and you know the support he's been given by the club, then it will have, you know, this season will be a disappointment and a failure. But at the position they're in at the moment, there's no reason why they shouldn't be up there. And I'm still fully confident they will certainly at least in the top 7. And my pre-season prediction of top 3, it's not out of it yet, but results like Saturday don't help.
Yeah, I still feel like they are going to get that run together at some point. I really do. I feel like it is going to click. You're just kind of slowly running out of games for it to happen.
4 of the next 5 games are away from home, which most teams would go, oh, blimey, that sounds a horrible run. But it might possibly, on the back of last Saturday, it might possibly do them a little bit of a favour.
Yeah.
You know, but that's got to start well this weekend, you know, to get that momentum going.
Yeah, just a couple of points I wanted to bring up about individual performances. Some comments I've seen kind of online and in articles. Like first of all, like Adam Clayton, obviously he's been really positive since he's come to the club, but kind of dropped off possibly at the weekend. Any concerns there? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it was just a individual error. You know, he's been very good. He's looked a very solid addition. You know, and he's sort of composed his experience, his voice. You know, he's fitted in and settled in very quickly. But unfortunately, on Saturday, you know, he was to blame for the goal. He gets the ball in midfield. He came under pressure quite quickly. What he should have done is laid it straight off. He tried to turn away from his man, who basically sort of got all over him, nicked the ball off him, and suddenly bang, 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 Barrow up the other end, 1-0. You know, so it's one of those hold your hand up moments. But that apart, you know, he's been very good. So I don't think there's a lingering effect there.
What about Richie Smallwood? Do you think it's maybe time for a change there potentially? I know some fans were.
Yeah, it's a funny one with Richie Smallwood because, you know, when they signed him, you thought, wow, you know, you've got a championship captain. It's not just a player who's played in the championship, a player who played 40 games last year in the championship. And it's the way, I mean, he plays a bit deeper, which possibly isn't, you know, the sort of quarterback role that he was given. I'm not sure he was, you know, that really suited him. But at the moment, it's sort of, I think the crowd are a bit ambivalent with him, and you know, you get the sense that it might be reciprocated a bit on the players' side, and it's one of those where, you know, ultimately, will you take out the captain? You know, I know we recently asked Mark Hughes about him, and he's quite happy with what the job he was doing. So, you know, it's one of those where I think his place, because he's captain, is probably quite solid, but there's certainly an argument, particularly if whatever formation they go, if they go back to 4-2-3-1 this weekend, there's certainly an argument that you could leave him out. But you know, we shall see. If they go 3 in midfield, obviously they can keep all 3 in there. But you know, it's a 2 from 3 scenario at some point, so it's a big call to make.
Yeah, I did see as well that Hughes was on about possibly changing shape, kind of, you know, trying to get the best out of Scott Banks as well. Is that something that he's looking to kind of implement soon, do you think? Is that game at the weekend kind of made up his mind with that?
Well, exactly. I mean, Scott Banks has been missing since Boxing Day, I think, because he obviously got a bit of an injury and then he hasn't been able to get back in. And the switch to the diamond formation, obviously, when you're an out-and-out winger, you know, it sort of made him a little bit surplus in terms of, you know, the way their team were lining up. But going back to the 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, you know, he can play sort of wide, you know, on the wing at the front 3. So I think they'll certainly move back to that way to get him in there because they need to be, because, you know, he's one of the most attacking players, and he came on for half an hour, and all right, it was a pretty low bar going forward, but he did show a lot more intent. And he you know, I was going to say, there were so few opportunities. We did whip him one very good cross, which was begging just for a tap in at the far post. Nobody was there, but you know, he did his job, and I think he certainly warrants a start this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And that did end. I think Barrow had gone 6 games without a win before coming to the
Yeah.
weekend. It's funny because Pete Wild was obviously in for he was linked, wasn't he, heavily with the City job last year,
Yeah,
wasn't he?
yeah, very, very, very much so. I mean, if the Mark Hughes application that sort of came out of the ether, if that hadn't appeared, then he might well have had a chance. I think there was a concern, obviously, in terms of the size of the club, because the clubs he's been managed at before, with all due respect, it's a bit of a different goldfish bowl, Valley Parade compared with Halifax or Barrow, so, but certainly, his track record, he'd certainly earned serious conversation. He was certainly very much on a shortlist.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, up next, it's Doncaster. Obviously, they've been doing okay of Doncaster. I know they lost the last game against Sutton, didn't they? But, I mean, what kind of test is that going to be for the Bantams, do you think?
Well, it's a tough one. I mean, they've had again, it's this division. They've had a funny season, Donny, because they came down first game of the season. Everyone's saying, right, this is, we're playing a promotion contender day one. It doesn't get any harder. Yeah. And you saw them grab a point and you thought, well, perhaps they're happy with that. You expect they're going to be up there. And then they sort of bundled along for, pretty much half a season, sacked the manager. And then they started to pick up, as you'd expect. But they're still, I think, 2 points behind. There's so many teams in this mix, aren't they? But it's again, you wouldn't be surprised if they suddenly went on a run and end up finishing 5th and getting in the playoffs. It's a funny one, but I think they've underachieved so far. There's a bit of Bantam's interest in there with George Miller, I think, and Keelan Lavery who's just signed there. But Miller probably sums up Donny. I think he's top scorer with 11 possibly, but he hasn't scored for 13 games. And I think he missed a bad one at 0-0 on Saturday, so it's that, again, we always talk about if players were consistent, they wouldn't be in League Two. And it's a little bit like that. And teams the same, and Donny's season, is not that far off what City's has been in a sense. So, they'll think they should be up there and, they possibly will be, but it does make this Saturday, as you say, a very big game.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. Huddersfield Town Fan TV commenting on a Bradford City video. There you go. You would expect the likes of Bradford and Doncaster to be higher in the table at this stage. Thank you for your comment. Huddersfield Town not so high up themselves in the Championship, but never mind. Yeah. But yeah, good point.
I think they've got bigger things to think about at the moment, but there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although Neil Warnock, there you go. He's been there, done it, hasn't he? Got the T-shirt. Simon, well, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, mate. And we look forward to speaking to you again next week. We'll see what happens with the Bantams between then and now.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye. There we go. That was the Telegraph and Argus's Simon Park. Honestly, we were buzzing last week, Chris, when Bradford had won 2 back-to-back games, had beaten Stevenage away, which, was incredible. Steve Evans, obviously, at Stevenage, causing trouble and mayhem as usual. And then, a week later, it's like, same old story.
Yeah, it's just the way that Bradford, I was talking to a Bradford fan who was from another podcast who was at the Rochdale Stockport game last night. In fact, he was I think it's a lad called Liam Chew, who's actually he's the mascot actually at Valley Parade on a match day, and he was saying like just the amount of games, as we've said all season on the show, just that at home they just cannot get over the line at home in most home games. As Simon just said then, 8 wins out of 23 home games for Mark Hughes?
Yeah.
It isn't great, is it? Yeah, it's certainly work to be done, but it's one of those. As I noticed it with the Rochdale game in particular, obviously we've been there, things turned quite quickly because it was a case of little old Rochdale, who, to be fair, were really struggling at the time, still are. It just, fan frustration came out, and you do wonder if, as you say, the fact that they have got that pressure of 17, 18 odd thousand fans in League Two, which is amazing, just really adds the pressure on the players.
Yeah, absolutely. Huddersfield Town Fan TV, brilliant channel, and I'm looking forward to the show. Thank you so much, mate. We were only joking, by the way. It's just because we were doing a Bradford City segment, I promise. We'll be so positive about Huddersfield Town later on, I promise.
The Huddersfield bit is coming, but not till 7:30.
Yeah.
Stephen Downs is going to join us, so.
You've got a little bit of a wait, mate. So, we understand if you want to go and then nip back on later. But it's about half past 7. We'll be speaking to Stephen Downs from the Huddersfield Hub about Huddersfield Town. Yeah, so it's an interesting one with City. Elsewhere then, Chris, across our region, I mean, if we're kind of starting at the top of the pyramid, do we have to
Oh, yeah, let's start at the top, Steve. Javi
Clear
Gracia.
top.
Is that confirmed yet, or are they still waiting for the
Yeah, no, he's in. Yeah, no, he's
Last I seen it at
confirmed.
lunchtime, I think, on Sky Sports News, they were still saying that he was technically still waiting for his work permit.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a delay with that, and I'm not sure that he's actually going to be able to do anything for the Southampton game, which is not good. Yeah, which is a massive blow because I mean, what we're Wednesday? It's on Saturday. It's 3:00 kickoff. You know, you would have hoped that he'd have been able to start work today. Really, get some kind of planning in action, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I don't know if he's doing the press conference tomorrow or not either.
What if they just kind of like sneak him into Thorpe Arch and just let him stand and observe rather than, he's not working. He's just a guest. He's just a guest. It's fine.
Well, that's what I thought. It's like, yeah, surely he could just like pass some notes to someone, and just be like, right, just get him to do the 4-4-2.
Yeah, if Bielsa can, send scouts off to and spy on Derby all those years ago, I'm fairly sure Leeds can smell Wangle, like Javi Gracia just rocking up at the training ground, but not doing any work, just a guest.
Yeah, it's typical Leeds. So we always have these daft things that prevent us from doing something properly. It's just so stupid.
It surely should be able to sort pretty quickly in the world of football, and obviously with the amount of foreign players and managers and staff over here, you'd think work permits should be fairly swift to organise. Yeah. I mean, where do you? Obviously, I know you did the stream last night about Javi Gracia, but for those that didn't see it, where are you standing on the Javi Gracia thing?
Well,
we talked yesterday, and you said it was sensible. I'll be honest. At the time, I was a little bit. What's the word?
Dubious.
Was a bit. Yeah, it's just not necessarily what I class as exciting. But the more I think about it, and I had forgotten that he'd taken Watford to an FA Cup final as well. It does seem like quite a sensible one, but it's just I expected more. Like I thought, this is Leeds United in the Prem. Surely just go all out, get someone big, and make Leeds great again. And Javi Gracia kind of just thinks, well, maybe at most next season you'll finish 12th and go out in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup.
I know. Well, this is the thing, you see, it's changed so much in, I think, 2-3 weeks since Marsh got sacked. So when Marsh got sacked, I was in that line of thinking of, right, let's go, let's get a big candidate. We should be an attractive proposition to managers out there, in the Premier League, and quite good squad. A good squad that's seriously underperforming, but it is a good squad with some decent players there. And then we didn't get our first choice, we didn't get our second choice, we didn't get our third choice. We had a couple of decent, or 10th, and then we had a couple of decent performances with the caretaker manager against Man United. And there was a little bit of like, oh, maybe this guy can do something. Bear in mind, he came from futsal 12 months ago.
Yeah, that's risky as heck.
Yeah. I mean, just when you look back now, you think, oh my goodness, that's crazy. And then the Everton result of the weekend was just so bad. The result, the performance, it was just terrible. So I think they were left with no choice. We have to get someone in, but from their track record, how they've acted recently, you thought, well, they're not going to get this right. And they'll more than likely appoint someone who's just not going to be on the money at all. And then Javi Gracia came into it. And then when you actually looked at his record, you start to think that actually that could be a really good appointment for Leeds. That could be a really good appointment. And I'm worried because I'm starting to get optimistic again, and I always get slapped in the face.
I mean, it's no Sean Dyche to Everton. I think that is the absolute masterstroke of the relegation appointments, to be honest. And so far looks the case with those wins for him at Everton. But yeah, because I was saying, kept Watford up, and Watford were, well, they're not, to be fair, let's be honest, Watford are a weird club at the best of times. The amount
He's our longest serving manager for like 10 years or something. Like he actually did a full year. He was their longest serving manager for like 10 years. He actually did a full season.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, the ownership of Watford has always been absolutely mental.
Chaotic.
Like it's something overall along the lines of 12 or 13 managers in about 10 or 11 years or something like that. But yeah, I'm trying to get enthusiastic about it for you. I really am.
Well, we're in danger. I mean, I think we're if you were looking at it now, you'd have Leeds as one of the favourites to go down. Certainly bottom three. Certainly bottom three. When you look at it, especially now, I mean, even Southampton beat Chelsea, which, nobody could believe. But then you've got, Nottingham Forest, who seem well out of it now. Wolves, obviously, really good under their new manager. Everton now rejuvenated under Sean Dyche. And there's only Leeds, really, that are heading in the wrong direction. We've not won a game since November.
You and West Ham. West Ham.
Yeah, West Ham. Yeah, I think the thing with West Ham, though, is they have got a good team. And I think, although it's not clicking for them now, you would suspect, although, I mean, if they leave it any later with Moyes, it doesn't seem to be getting any better, does it? Really?
I mean, fair. I mean, to an extent, I will give West Ham some credit because it would have probably been very easy for them to have pulled the trigger on David Moyes. What, weeks ago? But fair play to them for sticking. And to be fair, I think they did pick up one or two results that you kind of thought, okay, maybe they can climb out of it, but they just seem to have dropped off again a little bit, don't they? And are back down there a little bit. A
lot of transfer news about Declan Rice, isn't there? And I wonder sometimes it's like, is his head kind of out of the building already? I mean, obviously he always gives it his all, but I mean, I think they're on about like pre-agreements arranged with Arsenal and this kind of thing. And you just wonder if, they had a couple of years in Europe, is their kind of time kind of passed them by a little bit? They've not really progressed. I mean, spent big in the summer, didn't they? They were one of the highest spenders, weren't they?
I mean, it was a Europa League semi-final last year, which they lost to Eintracht Frankfurt.
Yeah.
And you thought, that's I mean, he did a remarkable job last season. Did Moyes, he really did. And it's just not clicked this year, but for them to be the only side, I think, in the bottom 6, would it be, off the top of my head, that hasn't changed the manager, they've got to. I mean, I guess I imagine West Ham fans is a mixed bag. I imagine there's some that are like, yeah, fair play for sticking with him, and a lot that are also like, no, probably run its course, probably should have gone by now. But it is what it is. As for Leeds and Javi Grassi, we'll talk to Tom Carnduff later on as well and get his take and see if he's as optimistic as you. I mean,
Tom's always optimistic.
Is if the worst happens and you don't stay up this season, I would certainly fancy him to give you a really good shout of coming straight back up next season. That's the one thing I will say with him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the way we've got to look at it as well. You've got to think, look, there's a big chance we're going to go down. So if you get the right man in charge, get that bounce back. Because, I mean, what have you got? 1 or 2 years to get that bounce back? Otherwise, you just end up in no man's land. Look at Stoke.
You're stuck.
You get stuck. You can't get out. And Leeds, they've got that record, that history of once they go down, they're stuck there for neon years. It just seems to be how it goes. Elsewhere, though, in the region, Huddersfield Town, who we're going to have a chat with Steve Downs later, but Neil Warner Kid, they get the first win in a few games. I mean, me and Steve were joking about it a few weeks ago before Warnock came in going, oh, could there, would there? But he retired. Steve had said, no, he's retired. He's got his feet up and he's not coming back. And he comes back and gets the business done, Chris, straight away.
It's what he does. If I was a Huddersfield Town fan, I would be absolutely buzzing to have Neil Warnock back in the building. To be fair, I've always loved Neil Warnock. He's just one of those managers. He's obviously never managed any of the clubs that I've kind of ended up with an affiliation towards, but he's always, to me, come across as just one of the best characters in the game. And obviously, the fact that he's got that affiliation with Huddersfield all those years ago, was it 28 years ago, for him to come back now at the age of 74 and, I'm sure he's told Sharon, it's just one last challenge, Sharon, one last challenge.
He's going to be doing it when he's 80, that guy, and he's just not going to stop it. But the thing is, if he can do it, if he can get the results, and if there's a need for him, why not? Why not just continue? Because he's clearly got it, hasn't he? And I mean, that Huddersfield, they were a basket case before he went. I mean, they were absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. They'd let go of a couple of good players in January. They'd, signed a couple of players, but it was just a mess. And then he comes in and he's straight talking. You got to die for 3 points, as he said. There you go.
Word out that quote, but but no, this is the thing. Like, he's passion for the game personified. I think he really is. Like, he absolutely loves the game.
Yeah.
And as you say, he had an instant impact, and what a goal from Humbo as well in that win over Birmingham at the weekend. Cracking goal. So, it's
Steve's looking forward to having a chat with you, actually, because I've been telling him that you said Fotheringham should have stayed.
Oh, I've never said you.
I'm sure you wanted Fotheringham to say. I'm sure you were like, no, stick with Fotheringham.
I mean, that was weeks ago. To be fair, that was weeks ago.
Yeah. I'm there going, no, Chris still believes Fotheringham in.
I mean, he was only there for 134 days. No, but to be fair, you cannot get better in this position than Neil Warnock. So
no, he's just a classic one in there. Now, we were hoping to speak to Tom Scargill from the Halifax Courier, but he's not available tonight. So we're just going to cast a quick eye over Halifax Town. And I mean, it's a really miserable time for Halifax Town at the moment, Chris. I mean, they got a draw yesterday against Solihull, but it wasn't a great performance by all accounts. And they've had a couple of back-to-back draws, so they drew against Bournemouth as well, but you really don't know where the next win is coming from. I mean, they've only won 1 in 12, excluding penalties in the FA Trophy. And you just wonder it's gone so badly wrong for Halifax this side. Obviously, we knew with Chris Millington coming in, it was going to be a hard act to follow. I don't think he'd managed before, as the number one. It started off pretty poorly, and then they had a really good run a couple of months ago.
I was about to say, it's been such an up and down sort of season. Because as we said, I mean, after maybe the first couple of months of the season, we were all thinking at this rate, or before Schofield had gone at Huddersfield, we were all thinking at this rate, Millington's going to be the first of our region sides to go. And then, as you say, they picked it up and started climbing away from danger. And as I said, they're just back on that bad run. And say 1 win in 12 is poor at any level. But if there's a silver lining, they've still got a cushion to the bottom 4 in the National League. What is it? 5 points at the moment.
5 points at the moment. I mean, I've got the league table up here. I mean, this is probably a team that we're looking at the playoffs. Certainly looking at the playoffs. I mean, we talked to Tom numerous times, and he said, look, the fans are expecting playoffs. We know budget limitations. We know who they're competing against in that division. But after the previous season, your hopes are there, aren't you? You're thinking, can we do it again? And you thought it would be a seamless transition to Millington, but it's not quite worked out that way. And they're kind of looking over the shoulder a bit.
You see it though, don't you? It's not the first time where an assistant has followed, a number one in terms of just taking the manager's job, and it's not worked out. It's happened at other clubs in the past where it's just not gone to plan. Also with Halifax, I think losing the players that they did in the summer, whilst they have seemingly recruited reasonably well, have they recruited as well as the players they lost ultimately? And I also think that other sides in the National League have got better than Halifax have, to be honest. I think the likes of Barnet in particular, Southend, both of those clubs had pretty mediocre to poor seasons last year, but have had a really good season this year and are well in those playoff places. I think other sides have improved, whilst Halifax have kind of generally plateaued and stayed about the same in terms of squad depth. Yeah. And I think that is a major factor. I think the fact that other sides have actually got better, Halifax, even though they've made changes personnel-wise, they've effectively stood still in terms of actual quality on the pitch. So it's just, the question is, how long can it go on for? These next 2 games, this Saturday and Tuesday games against Maidenhead and Wealdstone, are huge.
Yeah.
If you're a Shaman, they are massive because Maidenhead are one place below them, 36 points. Wealdstone, actually, to be fair, doing far better than I thought, but they are numerous points ahead, about 8 points ahead of them. But in the grand scheme of things, Wealdstone are having an exceptional season. Again, there's a side that you wouldn't expect to be up there, but at home, you'd still be llooking to beat the pair of them. Absolutely, you would at home.
Yeah, and it's brutal schedule at the minute. It's Saturday, Tuesday now for the next few weeks. So it's really attritional, isn't it?
games. Yeah, there's a lot of travelling. There always has been a lot of travelling, obviously, in the National League, but Dorking away on the Saturday the 4th, Gateshead away on the Tuesday the 7th. Then they've got, of course, the FA Trophy quarter-final against Aldershot. It's a busy period.
Yeah.
In most situations, most managers always say, "Oh, it's right, get a defeat out your system, go again quickly." It's that cliche, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're on a bad run, you just want that next game to try and change things. When it isn't changing things, when results aren't coming the way you want them to, though, you just end up on this elongated run of form, and you do wonder at what point Millington might come back under threat. As I say, if these 2 home games in the next few days don't go their way, if there aren't already, I'm sure there will be questions asked.
Yeah, you need 4 points, don't you? Really, at least from those 2 games. Otherwise, it's you're under serious pressure, aren't you? There, if you're Millington.
Yeah, if you can beat Maidenhead and take a point against Wealdstone because of how well they're doing, you'd probably be fairly content with that. I'd say that 5-point gap at the moment, as long as it doesn't close up over those 2 games, you might be all right. But there's certainly sides below them that will be looking to make ways up the table.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Elsewhere in the division, I mean, what do you make of the whole Wrexham story? Then, I mean, just the 2 Hollywood stars there running the club, the FA Cup drama with Billy Sharp, and I mean, what do you make of that as a thing? Are you entertained by it? Do you think it's a good thing, or where do you stand with it?
If you're a Wrexham fan, you would be absolutely buzzing.
You're in dreamland, aren't you?
You know what? Even as a neutral on this, but from somebody that's seen a lot of National League football over the last 10, 12 years or so, you know what? There's a part of me that thinks Wrexham kind of deserve this bit of success and spotlight, because Wrexham are the longest serving side in the National League. I think it's 14 years since they were relegated out of League Two. And for the previous, were the first 12 of those only in the last maybe couple of seasons, they've been pretty drab for Wrexham fans. They've been pretty much middle of the road. I think they're flirty with the playoffs maybe once or twice, but nothing really to get that excited about. And then out of absolutely nowhere, you get Hollywood A-listers saying, "Oh yeah, we'll buy your club." You it must have just been. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, obviously, I've cover Rochdale at the moment, and they're looking like dropping into the National League next season. I cannot imagine how the mindset would even work of suddenly finding out, oh yeah, a couple of multi-millionaires from Hollywood are going to invest in the club and take over and put the funds in. It's just absolutely insane, isn't it? And you know what? A lot of people, obviously, it's one of those, I kind of sit on the fence with it. I think it's a great story. I am quite entertained by it. I think the documentary was a really good watch. But at the same time, I'm also realistic to look at this and think they have got easily top-end League Two, probably bottom-end to mid-table League One budget there. Players on big wages. But then equally, if you've got it, why would you not spend it?
Yeah.
And it's kind of proving dividends to an extent, isn't it? The fact that they are where they are. It's a hell of a title race as well. Fair play to Notts County for pushing them the way that they are, because Notts County, whilst they're a big club and have got a massive fan base for the level, certainly don't have the multi-millions that Wrexham do. And it's a proper title race, as it is. Notts County, top of the league, 34 played, 83 points. Wrexham, second, 32 played, 78 points. 5 behind with 2 games in hand. If they win that, point between it after 34 games apiece, it's the title race that dreams are made of.
Yeah,
when you look at the Prem, only the Prem comes close, I think, to a title race like it this season. And we haven't had a Premier League title race that's been this good for quite a long time.
No, well, yeah, but you've had the Man City Liverpool one, haven't you? That last day of the season, but it's the same team. I know what you mean. It's of course, because they're so good. And
it's been them two, hasn't it? For the last 3-4 years before this time around. But yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Nick G, thanks for your comment, mate. Leeds fan, the only thing recently that has cheered me up is Huddersfield appointing Warnock again. Fair enough. Nick, let me know, why has that cheered you up? Because you don't want Huddersfield to do well, do you? I'm not sure there. I'm thinking, come on. One of the only places Warnock failed, really, was Leeds, wasn't it?
I mean, how far back are we going that? Because obviously I remember him being there, but it wasn't, if I'm right in thinking, was it not in and around that period where there was quite a lot of chopping and changing. Was it around the time where you had like post hoc day, but around the same time was Steve Evans and who was the Danish fella?
It's that.
Christensen.
Yeah, that was late. That was a lot late. Was Christiansen, but when did he? Let me have a look when he managed Leeds. So
he just seemed to go through this phase of like almost every season or two at most, there would be a change of manager without really making much progress. And that's to say, Warnock at the time would have looked a great appointment, but it just didn't quite work out. It wasn't catastrophic, though, was it? You certainly had worse than Warnock. It wasn't.
It just wasn't. No, and obviously fans never warmed to him. Leeds fans and Warnock, there's no warmth there particularly. But he came in a horrible time. I mean, it was 2012, 13. It was like, in the middle of a, hurricane around about that time. I remember the first game he was in charge and we absolutely battered. I can't remember who it was. And we ended up losing. And it was like a sign of things to come. Do you know what I mean? It's thought, only Leeds would not get the Warnock effect. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, no, he's back. He's back at Huddersfield. Good stuff. Premier League stuff, just kind of opening it up wider than West Yorkshire. I like to say it's a bit more of an interesting Premier League this year. A couple of things: Man United getting taken over. That's kind of going through at the moment.
Yeah,
that's going to be interesting, isn't it? Yeah. There's a Qatar bid, so it's one of them, isn't it? Where you think if they start to get that kind of state money as well, I mean, what you're gonna have to be a multi-billionaire. Well, you already have to be a multi-billionaire to compete in the Premier League, don't you?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think, again, an absolutely no affiliation to Manchester United in any way, shape, or form. Strangely nice to see them doing better than they have. I think, to be fair, mostly because I like Ten Hag, perhaps more than I like Man United, if that makes sense.
He's a good manager. He's got the stuff, hasn't he?
I like what he did at Ajax. Thought he was a cracking manager. I think he's been a great appointment. I mean, obviously, he's worked wonders with United this season. I think in terms of a takeover, I think everybody would much rather it not be the Qatari consortium. I can't remember the chap's name, but the Manchester United fan that runs Ineos, whose name has completely escaped me.
I know, yeah. Do you know what? I was hoping you would remember because it's completely got out of my head. Let me have a look. Is it Jim?
I'm sure it's Jim. Yeah, Sir Jim. There we go. Let's go with Sir Jim.
Let me have a look. I'll get his name up here. What is his blinking name?
But I think
Jim something or other.
Yeah, either way, I think everybody would much rather that because at this rate, it's another Premier League club falling into foreign ownership.
Yeah.
And with Manchester United, with all the history they've got, it would have been nice for them to have remained as one of the few clubs in the Premier League that is still under what you class as British ownership. And especially with the fact that he's a Man United fan as well. Whereas nobody on this Qatari consortium will have been, in the Stretford end when they were 7 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, none of them have got a real affiliation. It's just money and being able to spend it, really, in their case, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nick G he's a bit of a standing joke for us. I genuinely enjoy hearing him again, as it didn't work out for us, but he's a character. He is indeed, isn't he? And it's going all right for him. Premier League, meanwhile, did you catch any of the Champions League from last night? Real Madrid, Liverpool, what a game.
I've seen the highlights. I saw the highlights earlier on today because I was out at the League Two game last night at Rochdale and Stockport. But I mean, good God, there's capitulations and there's that. I mean,
Liverpool 2-0 up after 15 minutes.
Yeah, and you're thinking, excellent, this is on course. And I remember I saw it at half time at Scotland, one at screens, and we're like 2 apiece. You're thinking, all right, that's fine if you can keep that up. Nick an extra one maybe, nick it 3-2, take it to the Bernabeu, see what happens. No, that was that was not what they went for. Good God. I mean, don't get me wrong, Madrid looked superb from what I've seen on the half an hour highlights package. But for Liverpool, it's just another knife basically being stuck into them this season, isn't it? It's been an absolute season to forget. I think I saw Jurgen Klopp's quotes that initially from afterwards, and he was like, "Look, Carlo Ancelotti will think this tie is over. I think this tie is over." I mean, he did follow that with say, but in 3 weeks' time, we've got to go at it again. But it's going to take another absolute miracle for them to get through. Going to the Bernabeu, 3 goals behind. You just cannot see Real Madrid in any way, shape, or form making a mess of that and throwing it away, can you? You really can't.
No, you can't believe this Liverpool team as well. They were competing for a quadruple, a few months ago, and obviously, I don't know. For me, I mean, obviously, the defense looks terrible at the minute, and the defensive mistakes are just kind of mind-boggling. But then you think, is this kind of a tactical thing that needs to change, or is it just individuals? But it's just
insane though, because the personnel, the Robertson, from left to right, Robertson, Matip, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, and you can interchange Joe Gomez in there, or whatever. The personnel hasn't changed, apart from I think the last defender that Brighton would have been Kanate, who has looked a little bit shaky, but he hasn't necessarily been a regular. The personnel is largely the same from the title-winning side.
Yeah,
it's really odd to look at this personnel, and whilst obviously players age and that, it's not like any of them are over the hill.
No,
it's like they've got a back four made up of James Milner age players. Like, it's just insane to see how what has been a reasonably steady back line just go to pot completely. The centre of the park has always been a problem since title winning side. They've always seemed to, especially in the last couple of years, they haven't refreshed it with youth and exuberance. And when they have, it's been players that have kind of come through, the youth system or that they've picked up from other youth systems, but they're still young and inexperienced. They haven't brought in a player of 24, 25 years of age who's at the top of his game to bring into that midfield side. Hence why all the talk is obviously about Bellingham and whether they could get him in the summer. It's just it's a really strange situation. And the question is, where does Klopp go from here? Does he get to the end of the season? I think his contract is beyond the end of the season, but does he get to the end of the season, depending on what happens with investment, and think, well, if they're not going to give him the money to sign in these areas where he needs it now, does he walk away? Is that cycle done? And then where do Liverpool go from there? Obviously, John Henry came out, I think, a few days ago, after it seeming like weeks ago that they were effectively up for sale. He's now come out and said, we're not up for sale, we're just seeking investment from an outside source.
Yeah.
So, make what you will of that. But basically, I think they need some investment. I don't think I can't see Klopp staying unless they get it, unless they go all out to improve where Jurgen thinks they need to. I can't see him staying beyond the end of the season.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm just currently in contact with Lewis here. We've got Lewis coming on very shortly. He's going to be chatting to us about all things non-league, and a lot to chat to Lewis about, isn't there, at the moment with Bradford Park Avenue, Chris?
Yeah, it's another hit and miss period for Bradford, for Park Avenue. Obviously, they lost on Monday night very disappointingly against Blythe 1-0 after picking up a decent win at the weekend. So it's certainly a lot better season than it first looked like it would be, but it's certainly not easy going for him at the moment.
No, exactly. I mean, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? And we've been talking about this most of the season, is how difficult it's been for West Yorkshire this season. I mean, you look across the region, Chris, and it's just not really happened at any level, apart from, I mean, probably Bradford City are going okay. I mean, I know Guiseley are doing a lot better now, but it's remarkable, isn't it, how much of a struggle it's actually been?
Yeah, you've got Leeds relegation battle, Huddersfield relegation battle, Halifax started in a battle, pulled away, and are now at risk of creeping back to being in that battling pack. Obviously, Avenue largely have been in that relegation battle this season. Liversedge, again, great win for them last night at Morpeth, but still very much in a relegation dogfight. As I say, it's just Bradford City and Guiseley that are, and Farsley as well. Of course, Farsley are down there in the National League North, so it is very much Bradford City and Guiseley that are both well in playoff contention at the moment. that are flying the flag. Really, everything else is not great for our sides.
I know. I mean, further afield. I mean, you're a Lincoln fan, aren't you? Like,
Yeah. So born and bred.
that's your. Now, how are they getting on, Chris? What's going on with Lincoln?
Just mid-table. I mean,
Yeah.
I shouldn't complain at this. I really shouldn't.
Yeah.
But Mark, I mean, we've got Mark Kennedy as manager, who was former Leicester and Wolves winger / fullback back in the day. He had a reasonable spell at Macclesfield Town when they were in League Two just before they went bust. It's just a bit. If he left tomorrow, I wouldn't be sad.
Right. Yeah.
Like equally, I don't necessarily want him out. He's doing a
Yeah.
reasonably decent job keeping us kind of, I don't know, top end of the bottom half, shall we say? But it's just, I don't know, he's just a bit dull.
Yeah.
He's just
Get the
not
Cowley
really-
brothers back.
I
Is that
think
with the
that's
dream?
failed. I do. There's
Where are
still a lot-
they?
They are currently out of work, having been sacked by Portsmouth. Probably
Oh, yeah.
maybe 6-7 weeks ago.
Yeah.
There was, I mean, when that happened on kind of the Lincoln Facebook groups and stuff, that I mean, there was a lot of, we can get the Cowies back, but the way they left certainly soured some fans when they went to Huddersfield, of course.
Mistake
just-
looking back.
Say again.
Mistake looking back. Moving to Huddersfield like that.
Probably. I can see why they went. I've personally, I've absolutely never held any grudges with the
No.
fact that they left Huddersfield, because they did such an amazing job for Lincoln. And to go to Huddersfield, who at the time had just come down from the Premier League, obviously was struggling because they'd come down, because Huddersfield had come down and kept Jan Sievert. Remember him?
Yes.
And
Classic.
I will, I've got no animosity towards the Cowies at all. I wouldn't mind if they came back. I just can't see it happening, to be honest. But yeah, it's just a bit. We're not going to go down. We're not going to go up. Which I realistically, for Lincoln in League One with the budgets and the sides that are in that division, I should probably be pretty happy with. It's just not very exciting, is it?
No. Did you ever get to see them then, or are you too busy?
No, very rarely. Of course,
Yeah.
with the majority of the last 10, 12 years, I've been either affiliated with Guiseley or in the last couple of years with Rochdale as well. So I see a lot more of them with working for the club on their commentary team at Rochdale. So yeah, it's rare that I do get to see them, to be fair.
Yeah, and then you've got Rochdale, who, like he's mentioned there, you do the commentary for as well, and that's been quite a punishing experience, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah, you're not kidding, mate. But bottom of the 92, dropped bottom of the Football League and 6 points adrift from safety, and absolutely no signs of it turning around. Fingers crossed. I mean, last night they've been so unfortunate. I think I know a lot of support. A lot of the supporters aren't necessarily backing the management at the moment. They've been bloody unlucky in some games recently. They've played, I think, 5 of the top 7 in the last 7 games, and haven't lost any more than by a single goal. They went to Leyton Orient, who are the runaway league leaders in League Two, narrow defeat 2-1. Lost at home to Carlisle by a solitary goal to 0. And I'm going to sound like Jim Bentley in a lot of his interviews here, but in that Carlisle game, there should have been a red card for a Carlisle striker with a really clear elbow. Should have been a straight red card. Instead, he was booked. How an elbow can be a yellow card, by the way, I will never know, because surely you either see it or you don't, and it's either a red or nothing. But he booked him. And there was an offside goal that was disallowed literally like 88th minute, I think it was, for Rochdale. And you look at the replays thinking, there's a very good case for him. He's onside there.
Yeah.
It's just, when you looks out, you looks out. I mean, Dale at the woodwork twice last night. One of them was like a 25-yard screamer, like curler that just clipped the top of the crossbar, and you think it's just not going. But
Just
also, it's one of those. It's a results business, and it's understandable. You can see why there's a lot of frustration amongst the Rochdale fan base. It's been a very disappointing last 3-4 years, really, since relegation from League One the year before last. It's just been a slide that hasn't stopped so far. And worryingly, it looks like non-league is the destination at this case. It's going to take a monumental turnaround from Jim Bentley in these last 12, 13 games of the season to get anything. I think it's 1 win in 15 games, and that was away at Bradford City.
Yeah. Just which is, that says everything about Bradford City, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, it does, because we didn't, from a Rochdale perspective, we didn't expect anything at Valley Parade. No. And then, obviously, it just proves the curse of Valley Parade for Bradford at the moment, that Rochdale come on a win, and that's how it's been the only win in weeks.
Nuts. We've got Lewis Sale, who will be joining us very shortly. He's going to chat to us about all things non-league. So we're going to be looking at Bradford Park Avenue. We're going to be looking at Farsley. We're going to be looking at Liversedge and also Guiseley as well. Roughly about 7 o'clock, we'll be speaking to Sporting Life's Tom Cardiff as well. We're going to have a little chinwag with him about everything to do with Leeds. Plus, we might actually get some other Premier League content from him as well. Have we? Do you know what? I've not looked at him forever, Chris. Is the
I know what you're going to say.
Football League?
Yes, the fantasy football. I was hoping you'd bring that up because I'm on the up.
Well, my app won't even load, so I'm on it now. It's been that long since I do it. I've been signed out, and I don't know what's happened. Where am I, Chris? Can you tell me the bad news? Where am I? I've literally not even changed my team for probably since pre-World Cup, so God forbid where I'm actually at with it.
If you feel for a second, I'll quickly get my app to load and I'll tell you.
Because basically we started the Fantasy Football League and we did a Route 1 show league. Now, last time I checked, I was kind of nicely placed in mid-table. I think me and you had the same points for about 4 weeks or something, yeah.
And now I'm 8th and you're twice as bad as me in 16th.
Oh, wow. I'm just having a look now. So I'm just loaded up. Bear in mind, I've not changed my team for forever.
I'm about, you're
Downs at the bottom.
1,298 points. And I'm now on 1,439. I'm about 140 points better off. It shows that you haven't done a damn thing with it for weeks.
I know. I should have done. I wasn't doing too badly. I should have kept up with it, but I don't know what happened. I just too distracted with how bad Leeds were. I just wanted to forget about Premier League teams. But looking at it at the top, we've got Club Carcosa. He's been at the top all the way, hasn't he?
He has.
Phenomenal effort.
It's been absolutely flying all season at the top of our Route 1 show, Fantasy Premier League. And then Francesca Evans, she's been there and thereabouts as well, like hot on his heels all the way through. In terms of our kind of the guys that we speak to on a regular basis, it's not looking well. We're not looking too bad, are we?
Well, there's a pack of you, isn't there? We've got Tom Scargill in 6th, we've got Tom Cardiff in 7th, you in 8th, and Lewis in 9th.
Yeah.
So you're all bunched up, aren't you?
And then, I'm just going to have to just scroll down to get to Steve, because I think Steve Downs is way better than you have, to be honest, mate.
You're going to have to give him some stick when he comes on.
I'm sure he'll already have it all prepped. That he hasn't looked at it since before the World Cup and all this. But in fact, I'm going to look at his squad if I can, and just see just how bad it's been going for him. It's that bad that the league table won't stay down long enough. Oh, here we go. Steve's super squad. He's still got Gabriel Jesus in his starting lineup, and he's been injured for the last 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Before he was out just after the World Cup. And he's still got Brendan Aronson.
Well, my mate Glenn as well, he's propping up the league. He's at the bottom. I think he still had Gelhardt in his team who went on loan to Sunderland.
He's on 3 figures. That's how bad Glenn's doing. 3 figures.
That's got to be some kind of record that on
he's
fantasy football, I tell you.
Hasn't made it into 1,000 points so far.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'd say I've kind of tried to stick with it because one of my best mates who I've mentioned probably in the past is a Rochdale fan and with a small mini league that we have. There's only like 7 or 8 of us in it. But that's always the one that I kind of focus on because we all chuck a tenner in at the end of the season when it takes all sort of thing. Yeah. I've been determined to claw my way up. So I think I was second bottom when we had the World Cup break, and I'm now up to 3rd.
Oh,
yeah. I've been focused on trying to make things work since. So, I've already played my second wild card. I did that last week. I
Nice.
played my triple captain the week before on Marcus Rashford, which worked out well because it was when he had, I think, Palace and Leeds. I think it was the
Right.
week
Oh,
that
wow.
United had a double game week, so I think he got like 60 points on his own as a triple
Very good.
captain. I've really been trying to knuckle down on it, shall we say, and make progress in that league.
How close are you off the top with that then?
Oh, to be fair, still a bit. I think it's still like
Right.
70 or 80 points. Let me just double check. So yeah, I'm on 1439, and the top of the league is on exactly 1,500 points. So 61 points off the top.
All right.
With, I mean, how many game weeks have we still got to go in the Premier League?
Well, there's still
Good few, maybe 10 or so.
yeah, about 10 or so. Yeah, so there's still 10. Do you think I can turn it around? Do you reckon I can, if I wild card it and get? I mean, let me just have a look at my team because I must have some absolute dross in there. Let's have a look. So my team at the moment. So I've got I've got Aronson. I've got Brendan Aronson in. That's no good. Oh, Elliot. Got Elliot as well. I still got Haaland and Kane. Haaland's captain. Oh, Rashford. I've got Rashford. That's not bad.
Rashford kept plugging away, to be fair. But this is the problem. You've got Kane, Haaland, and Rashford. Obviously, all players that are solid enough, even though Haaland's been a bit out of form. But you've also got then midfield too of Harvey Elliott and Brendan Aronson. And then like Patson Daka, who's not really featured a great deal recently in your back line.
Yeah.
Emerson Palmieri at West Ham. But apart from, I think he scored, admittedly, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But West Ham defenders, really?
I know. I know. That right. I'm going to get back on it, Chris. I can turn this around.
The one area that you probably have fluked it quite nicely is Jordan Pickford, because obviously Everton have been keeping a couple of clean sheets under Sean Dyche, and you would think we'll probably keep more clean sheets going forward as well.
So just remember, with the wild card, can you make unlimited transfers?
Unlimited transfers, and then there's also the free hit, which is what I'm thinking of playing for this game week, where you can make unlimited changes for 1 week, and then it will revert back to your squad beforehand. So, for example, I'm thinking I'm going to do that this week because obviously no Rashford, no Bruno Fernandes, no Luke Shaw, no Kieran Trippier. Also, Brentford and Wolves players. I think Wolves might have a double game week this week. I think they've got Liverpool maybe midweek next week. But obviously, all those sides don't play on Saturday. United, Newcastle, and the sides they would have had. Whilst Liverpool and Arsenal have got a double game week. So it seems like a sensible time to play the free hit, because I can take out all the United players, take out Kieran Trippier, captain Mo Salah, and hope he does something for Liverpool in this double game week. Throw in 3 Arsenal, 3 Liverpool players, and see what happens, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just waiting for Lewis Sale now. He's going to be joining us very shortly to chat through all things non-league. After that, we've got Tom Canduff at 7, so we're gonna have a good chat with Tom. It'll be interesting actually to see what Tom makes of the Premier League in general this year. Because if you look at like Arsenal, I mean, great win against Villa. I mean, that they needed that, didn't they? Because I think they'd only got 1 point in 9 previous to that, so it was vital, wasn't it?
I think they'd not won in the previous 3, or they'd lost the 3 before, and it was either way I was about to say by Arsenal standards, but let's be honest, that's been pretty low of late.
Yeah.
But in terms of Arsenal standards this season, it's been, it looked like it was going to be Arsenal falling apart, let's be honest.
Yeah, it did.
But
yeah.
That win at Aston Villa, coupled with the fact that Manchester City dropped points at Forest, of all places, has, to be fair, done the title race wonders.
Yeah.
Because it's kept Arsenal at the top, and as a neutral, anybody but City, to be honest, I'd be happy with winning the title. I don't dislike City. I'm just a bit bored of them constantly winning titles. I think it'd be much nicer and just have a bit of a novelty of, someone like Arsenal or even United, Ten Hag, getting United, because obviously United are still in the title race. I don't think anybody can dispute that. They're only 5 points behind Arsenal.
Yeah, they're coming into it, aren't they? I mean, I agree with what you said earlier about Ten Hag, and I think the job is done, really. It feels like they've got a proper setup now, doesn't it? A proper manager, and with their investment alone, they're always going to challenge hard. If they're run correctly, if that team's functioning, they're going to be on it, aren't they, Chris?
Yeah, the ownership is going to be, obviously, we touched on it earlier, if it does go through, whichever way it goes through, to be fair, whether it's the Qataris or the guy that owns Ineos, whose name still can't remember. We never did look that up. Whichever way, if the investment is there, let's be fair, not that United have been short of spending a few bob over the years anyway. I tried to think what they've spent under the Glazers post Ferguson, but the way that Ten Hag does it, I say you would. I think if you're a United fan, you would just trust his judgment. You would trust the signings he's made. I think you look at the ones that he's brought in. Ericsson before his injury looked like a very shrewd piece of business on a free transfer. Yeah. Tyrell Malacia, the left back, I think looks very solid. And he's only young, 21-year-old, maybe 22 now. But as an understudy to Luke Shaw when Luke Shaw plays there, or as has been recently, Luke Shaw as a centre half and Malacia playing, he looks solid. Weghorst is obviously unproven. He's the jury's still out on him, but Ten Hag knows him. He knows what he can get out of him. And I've always liked Wout Weghorst. I've followed his career kind of quite a bit, mostly based off Football Manager. He's one of those players that I loved when I was younger, because I've always loved a massive sodding target man when it comes to FM. And obviously, it didn't go. He didn't set the world alight at Burnley. The best thing I think for Weghorst and Burnley was his announcement video, which, if you haven't seen it from whenever it was that he'd have been unveiled last January of last year, is brilliant. It's a proper, excellent unveiling video featuring Jurassic Park. He obviously didn't set the world alight, but you look at what he can do in the World Cup. Yeah. You know, that equaliser for Argentina and when he brings others into play, he could still be a really shrewd piece of business. And obviously, from Burnley's perspective right now, they're looking at this thinking, well, if Weghorst does well, they either cash in on him and sell him to United, or they're going back to the Prem. Let's be honest, there's one where there isn't a title race, the Championship. Burnley look at that thinking, excellent, he's had another 6 months of Premier League experience, and he can just rejoin the Burnley side for next season.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Burnley as well, how good are they? Vincent Kompany, I mean, he's just on another level.
I don't think to be fair, I don't think anybody quite saw this coming, did they? I think
what happened at Anderlecht? Did he get sacked at Anderlecht, or was he actually sacked?
Right. He was let go of, I think.
Right. It was strange, that, wasn't it? Because you thought it was kind of there and it was ticking over, and then all of a sudden he was rocking up at Burnley. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's obviously so far proved to be a very good appointment. I don't think anybody saw it going this well. I don't think Burnley fans saw it going this well. And you know, they've done it. I remember, I think they played West Brom a couple of months back, and West Brom fans were throwing digs on social media about the money that Burnley had spent. But actually, I think it was their net spend pre-January was good. Like they made a profit, because all they'd done is they'd spent the money on quite a lot of players, but they'd spent it on, they just spent what they had brought in anyway with player sales. They weren't spending anything extra. I think that might have changed possibly because they signed the South African lad in January for $8 million, who again his name is gone out of my head right now. But nobody saw this coming. What's going to be interesting next season, in the likelihood that Everton stay up, is Sean Dyche versus Vincent Kompany. Dyche is Everton and Kompany's Burnley. That could be a really interesting little matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be tasty. That's going to be very tasty. Well, I'm delighted to say that we're going to be joined now on stream by Lewis Sale, Mr. Bradford Park Avenue. Lewis, how are you doing, mate?
Not bad, guys. How are you?
All good, all good. You here? Was the M62 okay tonight?
The M62 wasn't bad. It was trying to get on stream. That was a problem.
It was funny because I was like checking my phone, and I just kept going like that. I was like, Chris, just keep going, mate. Just keep going.
Good fill, though. Good fill. I like it. Yeah, I like it.
You've done a good solid 40 minutes of filler there, to be fair. We've covered pretty much everything from the Azerbaijan Premier League down to the Tanzanian second division. So...
I know I'm getting on a bit, but it didn't take me 40 minutes, Chris. Come on.
Lewis, obviously, for having you, it just seems to have gone back to being a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, not a completely terrible bag of straight defeats, but just not quite as rosy as things were maybe just a few weeks or so ago.
Yeah, I mean, you've picked the wrong time to get me back on. I mean, it's not been great the past few weeks, I'll be honest. I think starting back, let's be honest, I think we go back to Gloucester. It was a horror show. From the first minute or two we conceded. It never got any better, if I'm being honest. And I think where we really struggled is that we just looked quite vulnerable in defence. Gloucester looked vulnerable themselves, as well. But we were 2-0 down after about 5-10 minutes, and we were stood there thinking, "Wow, where's this going to go?" And then we started to get back into it, but we always looked, a little bit shaky at the back. And conceding a penalty just after half time, it kind of really rubbed salt in the wounds for us, and we never recovered. If I'm being honest, at the time it felt like one of the worst performances of the season. And what I think infuriated me more than anything was, I wouldn't say a lack of effort, but heads just completely went after 3-1, and we conceded 2 really, really soft goals. You can't concede goals like that. But then we turned it around against Lamington, 3-1. Really good, solid win. Yeah, we were down to 9 men, but we sorted out the game really well. Managed it really well. And then we go to Monday night against Blythe, and I think there were a few people around us that were kind of saying it's either the biggest game of the season, and I can respect that opinion, judging by the league table. But in hindsight, it is a wonderful thing because we've got 13 games to go. There's nearly a quarter of the season left, and people saying there's not a lot of games left, but I actually think there is. 13 games is a long way till the end of the season. The performance was well off. We were miles off it. Blythe I've seen a couple times this season, really possession based. Like to play some good, good fast flowing football, especially in our pitch with a little bit of range just before it. It were ideal. But we train it, we're playing it. There's no excuses for that, and we just didn't really cope with the second half well enough. We held them out first half and started to come back into it, but we were poor. And I think from those people who go to home matches, that was probably the worst performance I may have seen. I've seen Southport away, I've seen Gloucester away. It was on a par with that. And we deserved to lose 1-0. Blythe were good, decent, and won 1-0, which was fair enough. I think, if we'd have got a draw, would have been, really pleased with that. But I think you're right. I think it's been a very difficult past few weeks. You look at the table, let's be honest, in the bottom 4. I keep saying it, it's hard to look at the table when you're in that situation, but there's 2 points separating 6 teams. It's mad. It's just so tight down there, and I think it's got to be probably a battle between the 6 or 7 teams down there now to survive in that out of the bottom 4. And there's teams who have gone on a good run. You look at Curzon, look at Buxton, they've pulled themselves away, and we've gone the opposite way. We've been dragged into it. Fars have gone unbeaten. Leamington have got a couple of wins in since we beat them at Avenue, so it's going to be very, very tight. I keep saying it, I've always said it'll come down to that final game of the season, and I still expect that to happen. But having filed it on from an Avenue's perspective is not the game you want it to go down to.
No, not at all. I was going to say, taking a look at kind of the league table from the bottom up, and I think
Farsley, I can't believe Farsley. They're just like they've caught right up, haven't they? Got games in hand as well.
Yeah, exactly that. You look at that, 2 games in hand on the same points as us, and you flip it for Avenue. We haven't, apart from Monday night, we've not lost against teams around us, but we haven't beaten them either, and that's where it's been. When you lose on Monday, that's where it comes to light a little bit more. You can go before you're unbeaten. You've not lost against Farsley, both home and away. Catching one down to 10 men with a goalkeeper sent off, and they were held out until the last minute to draw. We drew at their place early on in the season, beating Telford, beating Boston, beating Leamington. But then you lose on Monday night and you're dragged right back into it. And you're right, Steve, as well. You look at that, you look at Farsley. I think we're undefeated in 5, and that's what you need at certain points in the season. But it's now coming to a point where, some of us are having discussions to say, actually, unbeaten runs are all well and good, but actually sometimes it might be best to lose one and then win one, because having an undefeated run out of 5, you look at Farsley, 2 good results, albeit draws, 0-0s. But if you're in that perspective at this moment in time with a table, would you lose one and win one? I think you probably would, because obviously you're 1 point better off. And you've got a win under your belt. So, it comes and goes. It depends what kind of situation your squad's looking at and form and who you're playing. But, at Avenue, we went on 3 with, I think we won 3 games on the bounce twice this season, which really pulled us out of it. We were only speaking a couple of months ago where you're looking up and now you're in the bottom 4. So, yeah, there's got to be a lot of improvement from an Avenue perspective. And I've said it, that we're just crying out for experience. That's what we're really, really lacking. You've got a relatively experienced spine of, Luke Hearn, Simon Richmond and Jacob Blythe. But with a great respect to the lads around them, and especially recently with, a couple of the loans guys who've gone and we've recruited from Hull City, the 19, 20, and that's a young age to be thrown in this situation. And they're going to take 3 or 4 games to settle in. Well, we haven't got that 3 or 4 games to settle in. You've got to hit the ground running straight away.
Yeah, because you look at the league table and I think we can kind of write off Telford. You don't want to judge it too soon, but for them, 20 points, they're 13 points adrift of everybody else, to be honest, and adrift of safety. Then, as you say, Blythe, Farsley, yourselves, Avenue in 21st, just below the dotted line, then Boston and Leamington all on 33 points, Kettering in 18th on 35, and then a 5-point gap up to the likes of Buxton and Peterborough, kind of mid-table-ish. It's still exceptionally tight, and that's where it becomes more important just to start picking up the results, because you don't want to be that side that isn't picking up the results and find yourself at this rate, second bottom, just because of how close it is. I said the fact that there's no points difference between 18th and second bottom in 23rd.
Yeah, you said exactly what's on my mind with it. It was not much more to add that apart from, it's now coming to a point for some of those teams, probably, I'd say, in maybe 3-4 weeks' time, where, you've got to win. You can't draw. Sometimes you could almost say the next period of games, if you draw, you could probably get away with it and still stay up. But, if you're losing, let's be honest, like we've been doing, and a couple of the teams around us, I think you're right with Telford. I think, obviously, new manager, they're starting to pick up a few results here and there now, but they've probably given themselves a little bit too much to do. They've got some good draws at home, but again, draws for Telford at the moment are just not good enough. They've got to get 3 points to get anywhere close to getting out of that now.
And by the looks of it, Telford's the only one of the sides around you that you've still got to play in the remainder of the season, by the looks of it, just quickly glancing through the fixtures.
I think we've got Boston to go away, if memory serves me right, as well. But yeah, but you can also, this is what we were saying again the other week, we've played Fylde both times, we've played Kings Lynn both times, we've played Chorley both times, we've played Brackley. So them top 4 or 5 teams, apart from Scarborough, we're playing next Monday, we've all played twice. So it's that battle in between mid-table now. It's that kind of all football, hoping that teams mid-table have nothing to play for. So, hopefully you can pick up a few points against them, and that's where we need to come into, because we're going to have something to fight for. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We're in a relegation battle. Absolutely 100% right in it until probably the very end of the season. It's, can you be safe with probably 2 or 3 games to go, because that running for Avenue on paper, I think, looks tougher than a lot of teams around.
At the start of the season, Mark Bauer signed a new contract, and obviously we had that poor run at the start of the season. We were like, is the pressure on? Is the fact that he's just signed that new contract kind of going to take the pressure off him to an extent?
Yeah.
Where are things now, do you think, with the Avenue support, given that having kind of pulled yourself away from trouble a bit, you gradually slip back into the bottom 4?
I think there's a split. I'll be honest, I think there is a split. I think the way results are going at the moment, I think there's a lot of people maybe questioning. Not to say a lot of people. There's some people I think who question of, what does the rest of the season look like? My opinion, I'd like to obviously keep him. I think he's a great manager with a very limited budget. What we've got, and also if you did get rid of Mark and Danny, what's next? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And there's not many options out there. And plus, Bauer and Bosch have got a team who they believe at this moment in time can get them out of that relegation zone. If you bring another manager and who's got different ideas, again, with very, very limited resources, with not much time to go in terms of getting your team gelled together and how you want them to play, I think, that'll be a really tough ask. Yeah, personally, I would keep him. I don't, I've always rated Mark, and it's not just as a bloke in terms of how you speak to him and what he knows about football. I think he's good enough to get us out of that position. But, we're going to have to turn it around pretty quickly. And, those young lads are going to have to be kind of supported by the senior players. I think for me, the senior players have really got to take a leading role in this now. I questioned a little bit of that on Monday night, if I'm being honest. I thought we didn't fight enough and battle enough and really want it as much as probably what Blythe did. I could be wrong on that, but I thought we were quite weak. But the younger players now have this is their opportunity to shine now. This is your chance to kind of not make a name for yourself, but prove why you're good enough. And whether that's putting yourself in the shop window, that's fair enough. But I think from an Avenue perspective, we all want the same: is to survive and be successful. It is a question. I think you're right of who takes that forward for the rest of this season. And I think it is too late, in my opinion, for that change to happen. But football's football, so you never know.
Yeah. Rounding up Park Avenue then, back-to-back home games on Saturday and Monday. Chester on Saturday and Scarborough, as you mentioned before, on Monday night.
Don't get any easier, does it? Chester probably one of the best teams away from home, and Scarborough have probably surpassed all expectations, everybody around us. But what a perfect opportunity to get back on the board and win a game. And again, we've said this. You look at Farsley, and we'll come on to next. Have beaten the likes of Kingsland, have beaten Scarborough. They've got them results that probably outside many people weren't expecting to get them into that position, like you said, Steve, to be in and around that, bottom four to get out of that mix. We haven't had that results at Avenue this year, and so that's got to change pretty quickly. I think if you get 3 points out of that, it would be a bonus. And like I said earlier, I'd actually take a loss and a win rather than 2 draws out of that.
Yeah, that is completely fair enough in the situation that you're in. Moving on, as you say, to Farsley, and by contrast, what a remarkable February they have had so far. As you say, they are, and January as well, to be fair, unbeaten in 6 in all competitions, unbeaten in 5 in the league, and then that win against Hungerford Town in the FA Trophy. Obviously, a couple of back-to-back draws against the likes of Kettering and Chorley, but, they're on a good run of form.
And they've backed it with victories. This is what I said. The odd draw here and there is fine if you're going to back it with victories. I think what makes it even more impressive is they've lost Jimmy Spencer to Curzon Ashton and gone on this unbeaten run of 5. Albeit they've not scored goals in the past 2 games, but, they're pulling themselves out of it. And like you said, Steve, 2 games in hand on teams around him. If you're Farsley at that at the moment, your home form, I think they've only lost 1 in 10 or 11. We know how strong they are at the Citadel. I'm going to say Frost on the Citadel. Yeah, but obviously they've got 2 games coming up that are challenging. But I think at the moment, the run that Farsley are on, there's not many teams that are going to really want to face them because they've got a bit of momentum about them. And that's really credit to Russ and the guys there, because like you say, the cup hasn't been a distraction. People say, sometimes you don't want the cup games to focus on, getting out the battle of relegation, focus on the league. But I think it's actually really galvanised Farsley and really helped them. And not just on the pitch, it's probably added a bit of extra pocket money for Russ and the guys for either this year, or next season, which is a massive bonus. And, they go to Gateshead in the FA Trophy with potentially an opportunity to get to Wembley soon, which is unbelievable for Farsley, to kind of represent National League North as well. But at the moment, there's not much to be negative about Farsley for. They're doing exactly the right thing on the pitch to get results, and like we said, back it up with big 3 points.
Yeah, Banbury and Fylde for them in their next two. Banbury on Saturday away and Fylde away on Tuesday. It's a difficult looking games, it has to be said, for them, but on the form they're in, you certainly fancy them to be able to take something from them. But as we know, Banbury going well and Fylde title challenging.
Yeah, but it would have said Fylde had lost to Hereford last night. You know, it's one of those, isn't it, where teams can beat teams. Farsley have done it. They've beaten, like I said, they've beaten Kingsley and already beaten Scarborough. Having been down to Banbury myself early in the season, it's a tough place to go. As is Farsley, it's going to be, you know, similar conditions to what, you know, Farsley have been expecting throughout the season. I expect Farsley to, you know, really push Banbury close. And Fylde, you look on paper, it's probably a free hit for Russ and the guys. And that makes any team dangerous because probably not many people are expecting Farsley to get a result at their place. And Fylde have got a real battle on with Kingsley at the moment. Them two are really battling it out to walk away as champions. And once that pressure gets on top of you, it's a different pressure from staying in this league to winning it.
Absolutely. Turning our attentions then to the Northern Premier League and to our sides at that level. And for Guiseley, a 0-0 draw last night. But again, the good form on the whole continues for Paul Phillips' side.
Undefeated in 4, big wins against Stafford and Matlock. Obviously followed up that with, you know, a positive probably draw against Warrington. Maybe slightly disappointed to possibly not win against Lancaster last night. But if you can't win, don't make sure you pick up a draw because they've backed up within 3 points early in the season. They've got a real battle. I say a battle. I think they've got 2 tough games coming up against Radcliffe and Gainsborough coming up. But those are real big indicators again of how well they're doing. He's slowly getting players that, you know, settled into his squad, you know, kind of shuffling the squad about. And again, like Farsley, there's not much to complain about it, guys. I think Phillips is really impressed since taking charge. And the way they're going at the moment, you'd expect Guiseley to be in the playoffs. Big ask from where they were. But the points difference wasn't that difficult to make up despite the league position. But what they've done is they've consistently won games and not lost games. And that's where, you know, you look at the experiences brought in Mark Lees from Ashton, you know, 33, 34-year-old he's worked with in the past. Maybe not, you know, kind of the most glamorous and flair player, but he will absolutely give 110% for the team. You know exactly what you're going to get, and he's a leader. And I think that's what Phillips is. You know, he wants his team to real get stuck in, dig in, and get the results that you need. And like I say, whether that is, if you can't win, make sure you don't come away with nothing. And you can only give him a lot of credit at the moment for where they're going about the business at Nevermore. Yeah,
very, very much so. By all accounts, from looking on social media, not a great second half for them. It seemed Lancaster on top. So a point last night, not a particularly bad result. Going forwards, though, for them, Radcliffe Borough on Saturday at home at Nethermore Park. And, you know, again, you look at the table, both sides very much in that playoff mix. I mean, as you say, Guiseley were currently 9th in the league, but are only a point off the playoffs with Marine in 5th. It's very, very tight. Radcliffe currently 3rd on 52. You know, a win for Guiseley could potentially put them on to 4th and right behind the likes of Radcliffe.
Yeah, and I think Phillips and the guys will be looking at that as a real kind of marker for the season, how far they've come. We know Radcliffe, you know, they've got a lot of good, experienced former EFL players in that team. You know, I think when you look at the team that, you know, the squad they've built, it doesn't surprise me we're up there really battling to get promotion. From guys' perspective, like you say, Chris, you're right. If you win that game, you're up to 4th, 5th. You're onto a good one there. So I expect it to be I don't think it's going to be the most entertaining football. I think it'll be a real interesting, you know, a real tussle. I think between 2 teams who are going for promotion, and you know, maybe a 0-0 draw might come out of it again for Guiseley. But I think both teams would probably take that before the ball's kicked. If Guiseley win, I think there'll be, you know, quite a few people secretly getting excited about the chances to get in the playoffs at the end of the season. Because I think the league title will probably much done. If I'm being honest with South Shields, I don't think many people are going to look past them to win it. It's, you know, what order and what teams are going after that to really push on, because there's some big teams in there and teams that are in good form. Hyde are in good form as well. Like I say, Radcliffe, Marine, yourselves at Guiseley. I think it's setting up to be a real intriguing finish to the MPL season.
Yeah, I've certainly seen one or two kind of opposition fans on Northern Premier League groups that are thinking that Guiseley could well make the playoffs at least come the end of the season. So we'll see how that pans out. For Liversedge, obviously disappointing defeat at Hyde, but Hyde flying at the moment in second in the Premier League the weekend, 4-2 defeat there. But fantastic win for them last night away at Morpeth Town by 2-0.
Huge result, a real big result. And I know they scored early on, didn't they, through Nathan Cartman, I think, in the opening few minutes, which just kind of settles the nerves a little bit into a big game against, Morpeth. Like I say, they've probably struggled a little bit more so this season as well. And we spoke about Avenue and teams before. Liversedge are in a situation where they have to win games. There's pressure around Claiborne at the moment to get those points that they deserve. But you look at the three next fixtures, Marine, Bamber Bridge, SC United, we're all in the top half. So that win against Morpeth is a real confidence boost going into 3 really, really tough games. But if Liversedge can get, a win out of one of those 3, I think they'll be relatively pleased. But, if you back that up with another one, that's a really good return out, a real tough block. But it's going to be a tough ask to get out of that. I said it how many times, they've got the quality to do it. And I know that obviously, Remo and the team kind of recruited recently to bring a few players in just to strengthen the team. Nicky Walker going back as well is a big plus for them. So, I expect Liversedge to give it the absolute all to the end, and hopefully they do have enough. It's just these next block of fixtures are very, very tough. So for them to survive, they've got to really to impress for this next 3-4 games.
Yeah, they do certainly need to pull some rabbits out of hats, because the bottom end of the table currently has Belper, who are bottom, played 31, 22 points. Games played is a massive thing at the bottom of the Northern Premier League, because Liversedge, who are second bottom, have only played 28, 24 points. Marsk have only played 27, but are 5 points ahead of Liversedge on 29. Then Nantwich, who've played the most out of the bottom 5, they've played 32 and are on 32 points. Then Morpeth, who of course Liversedge beat last night, 30 games played and 34 points. So as it is, Liversedge are 10 points off safety. A couple of games in hand though on Morpeth in 18th, 4 games in hand on the likes of Nantwich, but have played a game more than Marsk, who sit just above them.
We talked about the relegation battle in the National League North, and we've said it how many weeks, haven't we? In the MPL, it's exactly the same. And I think the benefit for Liversedge is that they drew against Nantwich. They didn't beat them, but they drew. They haven't lost. Then they've gone and backed up with a win against Morpeth, a real tough place to go in midweek. A real hotbed of football up in Morpeth, who absolutely, they're fighting to stay up, and they've done a lot of good work over the past few seasons to get themselves in that position. So, yeah, personally, I've always said I'd rather have the points on the board, but I appreciate that Liversedge do have an opportunity now to get some points on the board and get out of this. They've got that opportunity. At least they're not in the same at the moment, same situation as Nantwich, who've played considerably more games. But Liversedge can catch them, and it's going to be a real squad effort, a real big team effort from everyone to get that. But they've been successful, and I think the last thing they want to do is to kind of just escape the MPL without much of a fight. And I don't see that. I think over games what I've seen Liversedge, there's a real togetherness about that team, and hopefully that will pick up a few extra points, really.
Lewis, just quickly before you go, League Cup final, Newcastle, Manchester United. We know Newcastle very close to your heart. What's going to be the score, mate? How does it go? I wanted to put a smile on your face before you asked me. I thought I'd bring it up.
Lawrence, carry yourself goal.
Get sent off. I don't know if I can smile or not. Really,
no, that was.
Carry your own goal, anyone?
No, don't. I think it's. I mean, you look at it form-wise. There's only one winner, isn't it, at the moment? And you wouldn't have probably said that 2-3 months ago. But the bonus for ourselves is Bruno comes back. So I've got to let my heart rule my head, because we've not been in a final since '99 when we lost to United 4-0, etc. I'm going to go for a very sneaky 1-0. And if that's the case, I'll be a very, very happy man Sunday. And I might not be going to work on Monday morning, just to warn them.
Fantastic stuff. Brilliant. Lewis, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Pleasure as always.
No,
Good luck on Sunday.
Try my best. See you later, guys.
See you later, mate. Bye-bye. Great stuff there, Lewis Sale, chatting to us about all things non-league. Well, we're going to be moving on to Leeds United now, and joining us on the show is Sporting Life's Tom Carnduff to chat all things the Whites. Tom, thank you very much for joining us, mate. So
No
a busy week as normal. I don't want to dwell on it too long because obviously a lot's happened since, but Leeds United 0, Everton 1 at the weekend. What did you make of the game? Just how angry were you with Leeds like I was at the end of that game?
It was bad, wasn't it? I mean, Twitter comes into its own at places like this. I had on my timeline Leeds fans going, right, this is it, we're getting relegated. And then Everton fans going, this is a horrible game of football. I can't see how we stay up. So it's, it's as it's transpired, it was obviously a performance that has led to a drastic change being made. It was just a poor game. It was a must win. And to come out of it with nothing and just an awful performance, it's obviously led to the events of the past few days. But luckily, in a way, it's when it is in the season. You didn't kind of want to label it a must-win at this point as much as it felt like it. There's still plenty of games to go, but a horrible performance, a horrible result, and yeah, it's kind of left them where they are.
And now we are in the relegation zone as well, and it was strange because waking up Sunday morning, it was kind of surreal because you think we're actually in the relegation places now, and it just adds that extra air of pressure, doesn't it, really, when you're in those places. And I mean, some of the results at the weekend were just incredible, weren't they? I mean, Southampton beating Chelsea. I mean, it couldn't have been any worse, could it, in terms of the other results as well, really?
Yeah, I think, of those 3 p.m. games, I don't think any favourites in terms of the betting actually won, which showed exactly how it was. Southampton go to Chelsea, Leeds have got to go to Chelsea very soon as well, so they'll kind of get their own chance at them. But even Bournemouth, who were kind of looking at it and thinking, I don't see how they get another point, to be brutally honest, this season. They go and turn over a Wolves side who have been incredibly good since Lopetegui came in. It adds to the pressure of it. Of course, you never want to be in the relegation zone, but Leeds were there game 38 last season and they managed to survive. So there's still plenty, the old cliche, plenty of football still to be played, isn't there? And it's that World Cup break that's kind of thrown us off track, isn't it? That Leeds made the change from Bielsa to Marsh this time last year, and Marsh only had 12 games, was it? Yeah. Whereas now, I think there's still, 18 to go. So, there's still a lot of time to turn it around, but you don't want to be there, and you do not want that gap to emerge because the way the league is structured, each bit's going to start breaking off from the other, and for Leeds, you don't want to be so far behind.
No, absolutely not. And the club did make moves. It came out late Monday night. Javi Gracia was the man who they were entrusting to steer us away from relegation. He was confirmed on Tuesday. Are you happy with that appointment? I mean, to me, it looks like a very sensible appointment. What do you make of it, Tom?
Yeah, it's, an appointment that, considering everything that was going on and the way that it was going and the multiple rejections, the fact that they seemed happy for Skubala to be in charge until the end of the season, is actually quite a sensible, as you kind of say, it's quite a good appointment, considering at no point was he probably ever in the conversation until Saturday night, Sunday morning. So the fact that they've kind of gone out and managed to bring in a manager who has history in these situations, and I think has done very well in these situations, and his kind of most recent jobs, the jobs we know him for, when you take in the circumstances, really has kind of excelled and got the results that he needs to do. Watford, for example, being the one we know about, Valencia and all their issues, the fact that he kept him in La Liga, which I think everything that was going on there, it could have easily got a lot worse than that. And then obviously in Qatar, taking over from Xavi to then win a league title is good wherever you are. So I'm pleasantly surprised by it. I think it was a name that kind of Monday morning, the one you were prepping for was Rafa Benitez, because all the noise was that he is in the running for it. He is a name that has been mentioned, but yeah, it's a pretty sensible appointment, and he's got a lot of time as well to turn it around. I think that's the key thing, that as bad as the timing was and the subsequent kind of chase that has happened, at least they've managed to do it now, because there's no point wasting more games and they're going, okay, we'll sort it out in the March international break, because that's probably too late. So a sensible appointment, and for me, one that does tick the boxes, and you probably feel a little bit more confident about survival now than this time last week.
Yeah. What do you think he's going to do tactically with the team then? I mean, one of the kind of points that gives me optimism is the fact that we might have someone in charge who actually will alter formations and will tweak things tactically. It's not going to be the same thing over and over again. I mean, what do you think he'll actually do tactically to the team?
Yeah, I think that's the big one, actually. The fact that Leeds' last two head coaches have basically been plan A and plan A only, and we will work to make plan A work. And to an extent, that deserves some praise, but you do need flexibility, particularly when you're a team that are in a relegation battle. And Leeds have never, particularly over the past two seasons, never really pushed themselves away from that. I think it's tough, really, because you look kind of his Watford side, whether it's going to be a 4-4-2 and a variation of that, and as soon as you say 4-2-2-2, people think, oh no, it's basically going to be the same as Marchball. I think there is, the comparisons probably end there between the two. In terms of that narrow formation, I think it's narrow in that you'll probably see inverted wingers more than driving to the baseline type football, which you would see with wingers. I think that's where the narrowness comes from. It's not going to be the wingers, the likes of Nonto and Somerville and Sinistera are completely redundant. I don't think that's going to be the case. It's just that their job is going to be slightly altered. I think that is going to be the kind of the main thing. I can't really see him shifting to a three at the back, given the personnel that Leeds have. If we're being brutally honest, I don't think defensively that there's the personnel there to really go for that, even after the January transfer window. It's going to be somewhat more passive, I think, as well, which is absolutely fine. I think it's going to be that not all out pressing everywhere and let's just go for it and see that. I think there is going to be some chaos almost, but I think it's going to be, kind of organised chaos is probably the phrase to use it. And there's going to be some passive pressing from the front. Gee, that's a tongue twister. Be some passive kind of in terms of the opposition half and stuff like that. So I think it's an appointment that will bring that. There will be some flexibility, and I think if things aren't going right in a few weeks' time, there probably will be that willingness to change. But I think there's probably the personnel for what he wants at the moment as well, which is key, because it could be so easy to chuck in a manager like a Rafa Benitez, who is obviously well known around the Premier League, is out of work, would by all means want a Premier League job given his comments on Saturday, and yet it probably wouldn't have worked in terms of the personnel. So yeah, it's probably a match that works really well, and I think there's going to be a base 4-4-2 which has some variation off it is probably the one we're going to see at Leeds.
Tom, is it an inspiring appointment? I mean, I kind of look at it and I thought when the job came up and after March, I thought this is Leeds' chance to kind of make a statement and perhaps, really kind of progress. Whilst I fully understand and I think, to be fair, like Steve said, and you said it, it's a sensible appointment. Is it an exciting one going forward? Where can he take you? Is the investment going to be there to try and do new things? It's one of those. I think I said to Steve, put it this way, like, hypothetical situation, and as soon as they'd sacked Marshall, was like, go get Pochettino, give him a war chest, do what you can to make Leeds that big club again. This seems sensible, but less exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Mauricio Pochettino wants, because I think he's apparently rejected the Chelsea job as well, if that came up. So I'm not entirely sure what he's waiting for. But it depends. If you asked me that 2 weeks ago, you'd say, no, it's not particularly inspiring. It's not the best appointment because, of course, there's a huge number of other options out there who'd probably be further up the list that the squad would be more suited to, although I think it works for Grazia. That I think at this time it is, because there's clearly the issues in terms of attracting someone in. That they're sat now in the relegation zone. At the time they were just floating above it. It's a case of if Leeds were in 11th, 12th, they were a team that they'd got results, they were uninspiring, but they picked up a couple of extra points that they probably could have easily done under March. Then it would be a far more attractive option. But the names you were going after, you're asking someone to give up a project in Spain where against all the odds, against all finances, he may take a team into Europe. You're asking someone at the top of the Dutch division to give up what would be a league title, to give up a trophy, ultimately to potentially have a relegation on the CV in 3 months. It's where they're at. And I think considering the options out there and what could have been, and Grazie is a name that hasn't been made, and kind of over the weekend when that came about, it is an inspiring appointment given those circumstances. And the flexible contract usage basically means we'll see how it works in the summer, right? And then we'll talk about it then. But it's for the circumstances they're in, the position they're in, and the fact that it's a very tough sell at the moment. It's a pretty good appointment on that basis.
To be fair, the one thing I did say to Steve was I think that should the worst happen, it's certainly a manager that actually you would certainly think has got a very good chance of taking you straight back up.
I think as well, that's something that had to be considered, because kind of the noise and everything you were reading and everything you were hearing, it was almost like relegation was never considered as a possibility. That it's always, let's just get to the end of the season, and then in the summer we'll go out and get who we want. Basically, we'll go and attract whoever it may be to come in, take in this Premier League club. Finally, we want to kick on up the table. And it was almost like, actually, it's a very real possibility. The probabilities and the maths behind it, those percentages keep going up and up and up as every week goes by. And you've kind of got to be realistic that you can't expect anyone that you wanted originally to be even remotely interested in the job come the summer if you're in the Championship. It depends, doesn't it? That if the football's good, if they're somewhat unfortunate and everyone can recognise that, and points came that or didn't come that probably should have, based on performances and based on how games went, then you'd kind of go, okay, great, someone to stick around will probably turn it around. But yeah, it is that flexibility, isn't it, to kind of look in the summer and then know truly where you're at, both as a team, both as a club structure as well. But yeah, there's a potential there. It's the potential there, which again probably just adds to the positives of the appointment.
What does it say when we've got Brendan Aronson and Jorginho Rutter playing for the under-21s, I think it is now, the other night? I mean, Brendan Aronson, you got a feel for him. I mean, he was scoring against Bayern Munich in the Champions League a year ago, and now he's kind of playing the reserve game for Leeds. I mean, it's just gone wrong in so many ways this season. But, I mean, where did it go from here? I mean, does your gut say we're going to get out of this now? Or are you, I mean, if you had to bet on it, would you say we're staying up or going down?
Tricky. At this point, having watched a lot of Premier League football and I've watched a lot of teams, at no point this season have I actually thought that Leeds are in the bottom 3 teams. There are teams around and down there, and even some who have slightly pulled away that aren't actually very good. But they've got the results when they need to, so you've got to give them credit. I think at this moment in time, considering the amount of points still up for grabs, I'd probably say Leeds will stay up, I think, now. It's tricky, though. It's hard to say with a team that are in 19th. But in terms of the squad and the personnel, there is a squad that is now good enough to stay in the Premier League, which probably wouldn't be the case last season. If they did go down, you could point to the personnel and say, well, probably not enough to keep you in the top flight. I think it's a different story now. And yeah, if I had to kind of make the prediction now, I still think they can stay up because it's so tight. It's so close at the bottom. I don't think it's going to need the 38 points or 36 or whatever it was last season. It just doesn't feel like that type of season at the moment. I just can't see teams picking up enough points to do so.
No, and when you look at Leeds' firepower at the top end of the pitch as well, and Sinisterra and Nonto, Somerville. I mean, surely a team with that much quality can't get relegated, and that's what I've kind of always stuck to. But then, you saw the performance against Everton. You look at the form Bamford's in. I mean, he's doing air shots 2 games on a row. I mean, he's got some real issues to sort out, hasn't he, when he comes in?
Yeah, but I think it's a case of doing it now and making that managerial change now is probably given the best possibility of sorting that out. We've got an international break coming next month as well, so that's a week or 2 off where you can further work on things. I think it's probably just a whole confidence thing around the club. It's inevitable, isn't it, when you look at West Ham, who are in a pretty similar situation to Leeds at the moment. There's some very, very talented players there who just aren't performing. And I think it's just a case that when the team aren't doing well, then the confidence is naturally going to be lower. So, yeah, it's somewhat of a concern, but there are players there. You mentioned kind of Sinistera, who's been so injured throughout the season and has never really truly had a run at the team. Jorginho Rutta's a very good player, just needs a bit of time to adapt and kind of get going. So the quality's there. I think the firepower's there as well, which is key in a relegation battle, isn't it? If you can score goals, you'll typically be all right. And Leeds have that at the moment. So yeah, it's definitely a more positive picture, a lot more positive picture than it was about this time on Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely. Are you worried about the fixtures, though? I mean, looking ahead, obviously we've got Southampton, which is a crunch game at the weekend, and by no means a given. But then, you're looking ahead, you've got Chelsea still to play, you've got Arsenal, you've got Liverpool. I mean, the last 4 games of the season, we had a really tough run in the last 4. Oh, really, well, this year's a lot tougher than it was last year in terms of running. I mean, we've got Man City, Newcastle, and Tottenham in the last 4 games. I mean, it just feels like, as we've mentioned many weeks before, we kind of burned through the so-called winnable games. And, you wouldn't want to be in that relegation scrap, would you, come those games at the end of the season?
No, but I think, what would we say? There's 20 points, definitely. Maybe you scrape by with 16-ish to stay up. You've got to find 6 wins from there somewhere. There's Southampton at home. There's Forest at home, Palace at home.
Yeah,
they've still got to play Leicester at home. They've got to go to Bournemouth. There are winnable games in there as well. And you never know with kind of when you play the bigger teams at this time, where exactly those fixtures are going to be wedged in, whether they are, I mean, Liverpool probably not after last night, but in terms of European involvement and stuff like that, that always helps. I think there are the fixtures there to do so. And I mean, even when Leeds have been bad this season, against the top teams, they've not been too bad. They've got some results. Obviously, the one at Anfield, they came close at Tottenham, beat Chelsea earlier in the season, albeit obviously the change that came there. So there are the fixtures there that they should win to pick up the points. But I mean, Grazia's Watford did it as well, that they were picking up wins and getting results against top teams in the league. Obviously, they finished 11th and got to the FA Cup final, which key for Leeds, they're still in the FA Cup. There are the games there to win. There are the games there to do so. And yeah, I think they've got a chance of doing so.
So what happens against Southampton? What kind of game are you expecting there? Will Grazia have much of an impact before then? Because I know, obviously, I don't know if there's an issue with work permits and if he's actually going to be able to train the team this week or not. But what type of game can you see that being?
Yeah, that is tough, actually, the work permit one. He should get one. It's just when it will come in. And the fact that part of his presentation to the board and the associates, etc., were part of it was focused on that Chelsea game against Southampton, shows how much that he does want to take charge and he really wants to make clear that, yes, I am the person short term who can come in and make a bit of an impact. So, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's going to be nervy, isn't it? It's undoubtedly going to be nervy for both teams. I think the emphasis has got to be on Leeds to go to them. The Southampton's confidence is naturally going to be high as well after that Chelsea result. You're at home, you're in a fixture that people will view as you kind of have to win now. You have to win this game because it's an opponent down near you. And the fact you've not won a league game in so long, this is the one to do so. So there's going to be moments of nerves. I think the longer it's nervy, the longer it's level, it'll probably play into the away side's hand. But Leeds have got the quality, and it's annoying because you say this every week, but they've got the quality to do so. They've just got to really capitalise on it. I think it's one that we all know that they've got to win. They have to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just elsewhere in the Premier League, how do you think things are shaping up? Obviously, Arsenal got a good win against Aston Villa, which was needed. What do you make of the title race? It's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? Because Man City, I thought they were going to go on this big belting run and storm it, but then obviously it dropped points the other day. Yeah,
it's interesting because I think at 2 p.m. on Saturday, we probably thought Arsenal had blown this. This is it. You know, they've thrown this away. Man City have got an easy winnable game against Forest, and you know the picture changes, and regardless of the game in hand, then that's it. The title race is over, and we kick on. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? I just can't look beyond Man City because they're the dominant team, and after a little wobble, they've kind of sorted themselves out a little bit. Obviously, we'll see how they do tonight in the Champions League, and there's just the experience there as well. There's more depth to it, in just across the board. That even with their issues at fullback, you just know they've got the quality to do so. It's going to be interesting. It is between those two. I think Man United are doing pretty well. I don't actually think they're in the title race. I think there's just too much for them to do at this point in terms of. Yeah, they've got it. It's not just points. Yeah, it's tricky though, isn't it? Because you kind of look at other competitions that are involved, and if they progress in the Europa League, obviously there's still the FA Cup to come for them. I don't know. You've got to find that gap to make up, and then it's not so much the points; it's also the drop off in performance from one of the other two. And let's say Arsenal win their game in hand, that is what 8 points. Would they be ahead of Man United at that point? That's a huge ask to do. It's not like Leeds at the bottom where you say, okay, the teams above you aren't winning. As long as the team, as long as you win, you can make the gap. You're looking at 3-game swings at some point now in the last 14 or whatever. It's a big ask for a title team.
I think I'm just desperate for what we try to do. A proper title race, though, more than just a 2-horse race. It's I think it's been good this season to have the fact that Arsenal are up there. United is surprising people. I don't think anyone really expected Ten Hag to have this effect quite this quickly, especially with the cup final at the weekend as well. It's just nice to have a bit more of a title race going with which isn't just Liverpool and City. Yeah,
I think it stretches down the table as well. If you look at that battle for Europe, it's absolutely incredible. That top 6, I mean, it's Fulham, Brighton and Brentford are battling for a European spot at the moment. And let's be honest, the way it's going, it's probably going to be one of them that get it. I think I'd still back Brighton just on kind of quality and experience and stuff like that at this end of the table. But it's stretched across, and it's helped massively by kind of Liverpool and Chelsea, isn't it? And their inability to get results and turn things around. And it's all just, Liverpool seemingly are back, and then they get hammered in the Champions League and their confidence takes a knock. It's just great. It's kind of that entire top half picture has been completely shaken up a little bit now. And even Tottenham and kind of their European aspirations and top 4 aspirations, they're taking a bit of a wobble at the moment. They don't look great, and Newcastle is shaking. So the teams below them are going to fancy a chance at grabbing the top 4 spot as well. So yeah, it's kind of, in terms of competitiveness, it's definitely up there in terms of Premier Leagues of recent years, isn't it? It's been great.
Apart from Leeds, obviously.
Yeah, apart from that end's rubbish.
Letting it down.
Ignore that. If you just look at the top half, it's great.
Yeah.
The fact though that Chelsea and Liverpool are the ones that are struggling, and there's those kind of unexpected pack challenging for Europe, excuse me, certainly makes fantasy football all the more interesting. Again, with everything at the bottom as well, to be fair, because it's so tight at the bottom as well.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare, to be brutally honest. Chelsea, there's so many good Chelsea options, and yet they're mid-table. It's just utterly bizarre at the moment.
I'm not going to lie. I thought I was playing a masterstroke at this weekend. Turned out I'd dropped an absolute nut and a half, because I'd taken out Saliba, I'd taken out Ramsdale, thinking Arsenal a little bit shaky away at Villa, Cuckoo and stuck. I thought, great decision. I put Saka in, he scores. In replacement, I put in Kepa, Badiashile and Mason Mount, thinking Chelsea at home to Saints. Chelsea have kept like 3 clean sheets in the last 4. Happy days. Yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because they're always drawing you in. It's same with Liverpool, that they're on the double game week coming up, and it's like, okay, I could just put in some Liverpool assets. And I mean, it's weird, Salah, because he's still the Champions League's top scorer, I believe, at the moment, and his form has been a bit iffy and stuff like that in the Premier League. But it's incredibly tough to call. But then it does open it up. You look at Brighton. Brighton's options on fantasy football this season are unbelievable. Solly March, Matoma, the midfield options there as well. Brentford, of course, I think have been popular since their promotion. And Fulham, Mitrovic was a great value kind of pick in that first half of the season, although his scoring's dropped off somewhat. So, yeah, it's kind of good in a way, because you've got teams who we didn't expect to perform so well are performing well. And suddenly you've got players at 4 million, 4.5 million who are suddenly brilliant. And the others, the likes of kind of Wolves at the bottom, I think Wolves are going to continue to kind of be quite good the second half of the season. And I've got a £3.9 million defender in my team who plays for them. So I'm hoping it continues and they keep clean sheets.
Oh, that's a good one, right? Let me get that copied in on mine, because I've not actioned my team for months, so I need to get back on it because I'm not too far away.
We did discuss this, and that was Steve's excuse why he's dropped from around where we were to now. I think Steve's like 16th, and where I think you and I are like 7th and 8th or something.
I've got Aronson in my team. Come on.
Yeah, that's how you know it's bad.
Yeah.
final thoughts. I just want to ask you really about Chelsea and Liverpool and where you think things are going to go with those two in particular, because Liverpool obviously got a hammering last night after being 2-0 up so quickly. Do we think Klopp will still be there at the start of next season, or do we think it's going to hinge a lot on whether Henry can find the investor? Because, of course, a couple of months ago, we thought Liverpool may well be up for sale. Last few days, he's come out and said, no, they're not up for sale, but we are seeking external investment.
Yeah, that's the bizarre one, isn't it? Because we fully expected Liverpool to kind of just get through January and then properly rebuild. I think that rebuild will come. It all hinges on that midfield rebuild for Liverpool. If that comes in the summer, then I think absolutely I'll stay on. It's like, right, okay, we're back. We're in a better position. I can work with this. And you're looking at kind of the midfield they're putting out now. It's not great. I mean, Stefan Bajcetic has been the one positive that's come from this in kind of his game time. I think it all hinges on that. If they can rebuild effectively, rebuild the midfield, and they've got to basically rebuild the entire midfield department in the summer. If they can do that, then I think he'll stick around. It doesn't seem to me one.
Even though things have been a little bit iffy defensively, generally speaking, it's a solid enough unit. The forward options and the wide options are there. It has been for the last 18 months, that central midfield situation where they've just either not had people fit or it's just not worked.
Yeah, it's basically that, I think. I think last night as well, you look at Liverpool and the confidence just isn't there at the moment. The nature of some of those goals that they conceded, it's a team low on confidence. And, albeit Real Madrid are a very quality team, but they absolutely hammered them in that Champions League final, Liverpool, and they were just incredibly unlucky not to win it. That wasn't that long ago. So the fact that in less than a year, the tables have flipped so drastically on them, I can't see him quitting off it. And by all accounts, Chelsea are going to stick with Graham Potter as well. I think for Chelsea, it might actually work because at the moment for them, do you actually want to be in the Europa League? Do you want to be in the Europa Conference League? Probably not. You can do what Arsenal have done this year. No European football to worry about. Just have a great time and kind of go, as they did recently, no European football to worry about and you can really attack it. So
I'll be honest, I'm so glad that you said that about Chelsea. So glad you said that because I was starting to think that I was mental because everyone that I talked to, a lot of my friends are all like, Potter's got to go, he's got to go. They need to qualify for Europe. And they're thinking like, the one thing that Todd Bowley has said since he came in and since he appointed Potter is that this is a long-term thing. This isn't, if it doesn't go well, we'll get rid of him in 6 months. They kind of signified that for me by bringing in the recruitment staff that they did from Brighton as well. But as I was just starting to think, surely I'm not, I can't be the only person that's thinking this is okay. Yes, it's not great results-wise, but the long-term plan is there still, all the same.
Yeah, I think that's it. They've got to look at it. This season almost was a free hit for Chelsea. It just started so badly. Everything that went on, all the takeover and the recruitment policy is interesting and how much Potter actually wants some of these players. But you look at Arsenal, was it last season? They had no European involvement whatsoever. Yeah. And they allowed them that properly season of building and focusing purely on domestic competitions. But then this season, they've kicked on and they're now, well into the title race. You take Chelsea in that situation, who have a significantly better squad than Arsenal. Next season is a huge chance for them to win the title. And it is probably an acceptance at this stage that it's probably better to finish 8th than it is to finish 5th. Because Chelsea, there's no interest in those European competitions. They want to be in the Champions League every single year. So even if they kind of have that lowly finish, if anything, it's probably going to work out better. They'll come good. The quality's there, isn't it? The head coach is just absolutely superb. And I think in games they have been somewhat unfortunate not to have taken more chances. So Chelsea will be the one and they'll be in the title race next year, won't they? Everyone can enjoy their 1 year off. We can all kind of take it in and make the most of it.
You said it yourself, though, just then as well. There was spells earlier in Arteta's Arsenal reign when things looked a little bit shaky and it didn't look like at all that it was going to pan out the way it has, but it's just how it sometimes does.
Yeah, and you can't spend that amount of money and Chelsea have always done it, haven't they? That players that were great for 2 seasons then absolutely had no involvement whatsoever. I think like Zappa, Costa, players like that, were just there and then they disappear. Nobody really knows what they do and they've got no kind of further purpose for the team. You can't spend all that money and then do it to this extreme. You can't then buy players for hundreds of millions of pounds every single window and then constantly chop and change. So there's got to be a commitment to do so. And yeah, it's great. Graham Potter was brilliant at Brighton. It's not just going to go bad overnight. Like Chelsea were horrendous at the start of the season as well. It's a huge ask to just expect anyone to come in and go, yeah, there's your issue solved, fine. We'll crack on. He just needs a summer to really attack it.
Yeah, he needs time, and I think he'll be giving it under this ownership. It's just one of those, isn't it? It's so different from Chelsea of years gone by, where as soon as you get a run of results like this, the manager would go. But that was Abramovich's way of doing things. This is Bowley's, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, you were imagining that Leeds, Southampton, West Ham maybe were hoping they probably pulled the trigger after Saturday because you'd be straight in there with offers going, please take charge. But yeah.
I wonder if that's what Leeds were hanging on for, Graham Potter.
Maybe it was, and it became clear, yeah. No coincidence that's the Saturday news that comes out that they're going to stick by him. Then they suddenly go and get another manager, so who knows, maybe it was.
Hey, he's familiar to Leeds, isn't he, Potter? So he was there with... He was at Leeds University, wasn't he, as a lecturer or coach?
Absolutely. Moved back into his old flat or something. Yeah. Or got connections.
Yeah. Good stuff, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us, mate, and we'll speak to you again next week.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
There we go. That was Tom Candle from Spotting Life chatting to us about all things Leeds. Well, we're moving on now, as promised, to Huddersfield Town, and I'm delighted to say joining us is the Huddersfield Hub, Steve Down. Steve, how are we doing, mate?
All right, how are we doing? Nice to see you, Steve, and good to see you, Christopher, as well. Not seeing you for a while, looking good, mate, since in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
he's wearing his Mark Fotheringham t-shirt there.
I'm looking forward to. It's nice that you've decided not to be scared about coming on the podcast with me and taking me on about Fotheringham. It's you were waiting for your moment. I like it. You were busy.
He was, and we're going to get into it. Steve, Neil Warnock. There we go. Bang, straight away. The Warnock effect. 2-1 victory against Birmingham. What did you make of it? How pleased are you? I mean, Chris said earlier in the show, Huddersfield Town fans must just be buzzing right now.
Yeah, we are really. The impact was straight away. I think we said last week it probably would be, and Birmingham are a shell of a club, and they, showed that really on Saturday. Went 1-0 up with Deeney in what is a very contentious offside decision. But we showed spirit and desire and everything that a Neil Warnock side has, and got what we deserved. And we deserved to win that game, and it's now added 3 vital points, particularly with what has happened in this midweek period where we've fallen slightly back again. I would have hated to have come on here and if we hadn't got the 3 points, particularly now knowing what's happened in midweek. So yeah, it's it's a bit of comfort, but we need to now carry on and back some of it up. Obviously, a difficult trip to Burnley, free hit at the weekend, but the 2 home games after that is sort of becoming a must-wins, really.
Yeah, because if you look at it now, I mean, Cardiff, the 4 points above you, you've got a game in hand, but it's Burnley, isn't it, coming up next? So it's going to be a tricky one. Just getting into that performance, or what was it that Warnock actually did with the team? Would you say that actually made the difference? Got the 3 points? Was it just the fact that he instilled the confidence? Was it a change of personnel? I mean, what did you think that he actually did that was different to what was going on before, particularly?
Well, I think the players had an idea of where they were on the pitch for a start off, which always helps when you're playing a football match. He gave them direction. There wasn't really any messing about with playing it out from the back and that sort of thing. We did play football. It wasn't all long ball, but there was an semblance of a plan. Get it into the forwards, into Danny Ward. He played young Humbo up there, which a bit of a new position for him, but did really well. Took his goal fabulously well, and then the second goal came from our young fullback. I think 19-year-old Headley, who'd been out on loan at Harrogate, did very well for them. Has come back into the team and has played a couple of games now and looks okay. And definitely looked okay on Saturday. So I think, by all accounts, he knows he hasn't got as many leaders as what he did at Rotherham, but he also has got more of those younger lads that have got a bit of pace and energy about them and can cause teams trouble, and that's what we did against Birmingham. And we also defended for his lives. Tom Lees played well. Heilig came back after what we all thought he was going to be injured. Same with Danny Ward. By all accounts, Neil rang them up and said, "Are you fit?" And they said, "Well, the physios have said this, and that we maybe shouldn't play." And Warnock said, "Stuff that you're playing." So, I suppose when Neil tells you something, you play, don't you? So, and they did terrifically well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Interesting comments on Danny Ward as well. I love that. He said, "He's one of the reasons I came back. He's my best player. I love him." It's like a late Valentine's Day message, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it really was. But that's the sort of thing that Neil brings. I mean, he says that about Danny Ward. So how big and sort of full of pride is Danny going to be now, pulling a shirt on? Not to say that he wasn't before, but wasn't having the best of seasons. Has been slightly injury prone more this year than last year. So he maybe needs that bit of love. He said to Joseph Humbo before they even walked out the tunnel on Saturday, he went, "Go and make me look a good manager." Well, we all know he's a good manager, but how much must that brought up Umbo's confidence? So he does. He said after the game to young Kamara, he said that was the first time Kamara's probably got blood on his face. So he has this sort of ability to just make people think that they're so much better than what they are, and make a team the more some of its parts, and that's why he's the only person. And I said he was the only person for the role, really, because he just adds that 10-15% more onto each player in the team on that day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting actually, because I saw that Sorba Thomas had come out and he was venting his Huddersfield Town frustration and anger, because obviously he's gone on loan to Blackburn Rovers. Do you think he's kind of looking over now, thinking, "Oh, that's a shame that they stuck with Fotheringham so long. Otherwise, it might have gone very different for him."
Well, I think the thing for Sorba is now he's made his bed and he's got to lay in it, as the old saying goes. He's come out and said he wants to be in a promotion chasing side. Well, he's got his wish. He's at Blackburn. From what I've seen from Blackburn, fans' comments, they're not particularly amazed by him. They're not saying he's a bad player, but they're not amazed by him. So, that's what he's got to go and do. He's got to help Blackburn, go and win promotion. And then he'll come back to us and we'll see where things land. But his attitude, before the World Cup and then after it wasn't good enough for what Huddersfield Town fans expect from their side, and wasn't good enough for the position that we're in. Certainly not.
No, absolutely. Now, just something to pique the interest between you two, especially. Danny Cowley in frame for a League Two return. So they're on about him getting a job at Colchester. What do you guys make of that? Is that a yay or a nay? Is it going to be a success? Should he have been back?
We'll let the positive Christopher go first.
No, it would make sense, to be fair to him. Obviously, he's an Essex lad. A pair of them are obviously managed at Braintree, that's just down the road. And it's a club that, I mean, obviously, I know there's been a bit of a mixed reaction to Matt Bloomfield leaving Colchester to take the Wickham job. I think some Colchester fans understand it because of Bloomfield's affiliation with Wickham. I think a lot of Colchester fans are a little bit frustrated because obviously he was really well backed in the January window. They've picked up some results, and Bloomfield looked a really good appointment for them and was pulling them away. With the Cowleys, I think I say logic's there. It's geographically makes sense. The stock post Portsmouth probably isn't quite as high as they'd like it to be. Well, it wasn't fully catastrophic at Portsmouth. It just wasn't as successful a partnership as it could have been. I think Colchester would be a perfectly logical option, to be fair, because they're a side that I think next season, whoever kind of comes in, you would look at Colchester and think they've got a really good chance of minimum top half, probably making the playoffs in League Two next season with the players that they've now got in the squad.
Oof, there we go. Now that is a good answer. I'm very confident about how Cowley's going to do at Colchester now. I like how Steve's just sat there going, I remember what it was like for us. I remember.
Well, it's all about this game's all about opinions, isn't it? And my opinion of Danny Cowley isn't as high as what Chris's is, and that's not to say Chris's opinion is wrong. By the way, I would never say that, but unless it's on Matt Fotheringham, and then it definitely is. But in yeah, factually, he's 100% wrong. But in terms of Cowley, you know, he did well, obviously, at Lincoln. Lincoln is a very similar size club to Colchester. I will compare them in similar size. Obviously, like I said, geographically, it makes sense that you know, for them, it's they're probably going home. Portsmouth, to me, you know, I just don't understand how you can fail at a club like Portsmouth in League One. There's so many managers now that have gone to that club and just not done well. And, you know, he was backed at Portsmouth. You can't say he wasn't. They have had good players there. It's a decent squad. And, you know, it's not worked out. It didn't work out at Huddersfield. He wasn't the type of manager we wanted. He wanted more control and all that sort of thing. At Town, which we were willing to give. We wanted the head coach model. And so, you know, I feel that probably Colchester will suit the Cowleys. They can go back to somewhere where they can start again. You know, that's the thing for them. They can rebuild their reputation. They've, you know, tried to go from Lincoln to Huddersfield and Portsmouth, and you know, it's not quite worked out. They've not been able to find that magic. Well, in League Two, you've got a bit of a canvas, blank canvas to work your magic again and create that type of atmosphere that you did at Lincoln. You know, I'm sure Colchester fans will say that they expect to maybe get promotion. As you said, Chris, they've brought in some good players. I'm not surprised Matt Bloomfield went to Wickham, not with the history he's got at that club. And so, you know, that to me is a sort of sensible appointment, to be honest, from Wickham's point of view. Get somebody in who clearly cares about the club and hasn't been too distant probably from what's happened at Wickham. You know, he'll know quite a lot of people still at the club. So from their angle, it makes sense. From Colchester's angle, if they went for Cowley's, makes sense too. I have nothing against them. I don't feel that they produced what everybody said that they were going to produce at Huddersfield. Let's just say that.
So getting back to the match ahead then, I mean, how impressed with Burnley have you been this season, Steve? I mean, Vincent Kompany, a fabulous job is done there. I mean, what have you made of how it's gone for them this season?
Yeah, well, Vincent's come in and changed it from chalk to cheese, hasn't he? And, you know, he's made wine out of water, really, from what they were doing under Dyche. The football's been outstanding. In my job, I know quite a few Burnley fans. In fact, there's more Burnley fans at my place of work than there is Huddersfield fans. So and I work in the middle of Huddersfield, so I don't know what that says. But yeah, they've been impressive. They play a good style of football. They've got some very, very good players. And it's going to be tough. The home record is particularly good. They've made Turf Moor a bit of a fortress this year. But they have let in goals in the previous couple of months. You know, it's not all been clean sheets. Certainly not. And so there is a chance, a path to the goal. It's just whether we have got the quality to get there. But you know, let's see. Warnock, like I say, we'll go to Turf Moor and Warnock will be saying, "Oh, nobody gives us a chance at all. So why don't you go out and prove that you can beat the top teams in this division?" You know,
that's it, isn't it? Yeah. That's absolutely like it would be so typically Neil Warnock in the situation that Huddersfield find themselves to go to Turf Moor and completely upset the odds and pull it out of the bag.
It's not who Vincent Kompany would have been prepared to face. He would have rather faced Mark Fotheringham. So, you know, which is like saying you'd rather face a a T-Rex or a cuddly teddy, really, wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think you can think of two more opposite managers, can you? Really, Vincent Kompany,
Well,
kind of young up and comer. It seems very much kind of in the Pep mold, and then you've got Warnock, who's in his mid-70s, who is ignoring medical advice for his players. It's like it's crazy, isn't it, to think that the two are now meeting?
If your leg's still attached, play on.
Yeah.
But that's we said about that last week, didn't we? About have these older managers got a place in the game, and they absolutely have. And like Chris says, it wouldn't shock me if we went to Turf Moor and beat Burnley. But that's that. I'm not expecting that by any means. I'd like it if it was just 2-1, 3-1. That would do me, as long as it's not an absolute mauling and there's loads of goals flying in, which will hurt our goal difference, and that's fine. But how good would it be for confidence to go to Burnley and get any sort of result? I mean, that would be terrific, and it would also show the teams above us that it's we're chasing after them. We're not going to give up the fight, and I'm sure Warnock he's going to tell his players that on the training pitch this week. And on Saturday before the match.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it more next week when we preview, but that Coventry game after, I mean, they're not doing too badly. I mean, they won 3 out of the last 5, and they're going along a little bit better than they were. It's like we talked before, isn't it? I mean, it's just no easy games, is there, really?
No, there's no easy games. There's no easy games, but Warnock knew that when he took the job on. And as he said, anybody would have to be an idiot to take the Town job, and it's a good job he is an idiot. Self-proclaimed an idiot, by the way. I'm not calling him an idiot.
That could have been the headline for the video. That
it could have been. But I think he's a genius. But he calls himself an idiot. But no, Coventry are. They've been on a better run of form. We played them at an optimal time when they weren't in good form. We threw it away like we did with the other results, and that's why I always said that Fotheringham should have been sacked when the World Cup came round. But as ever, Town took Christopher's advice and thought, well, let's keep him. I don't know whether Chris had all to do with it. Maybe he made a cheeky phone call to Dean saying, "Oh, give him a chance. Poor lad's done his best." Yeah.
Can I just say that Chris was advocating for Leeds to stick with Jesse Marsh as well?
Yeah.
When Jesse Marsh got sacked, Chris messaged me and was like, "Well, it's the big mistake and everything." So maybe Chris, you just you don't want to see managers go, do you, mate? That's all it is. You just
nobody does. But maybe Chris should think about opening up a business to take care of those poor soul managers that have been sacked to, retirement home for managers or something.
Make a fortune, to be fair, the way that football is in general at the moment. You can make a fortune doing that.
Yeah, you get plenty of business, Chris. You could be rich. We're giving you a right idea there. You could pump money into this podcast and everything with your millions. But yeah, back to the Coventry game. The fact of the matter is it's 2 big home games after the Burnley game, and we really need to get 6 points from them if we can to have any chance of staying up.
I was about to touch on the fact that I've just looked ahead right to March's fixtures. It's a very interesting month because you've got those back-to-back home games, you say, against Coventry and Bristol City, and then you face 2 former Terriers managers in succession in Corberan's West Brom away, and then David Wagner's Norwich at home the Wednesday after. So, rounding that off with playoff chasing Millwall on the 18th, March looks like a very busy and interesting month.
Yeah, I might not be around for March, boys. Yeah, it does. The two games against the ex-managers will be interesting. I feel that one ex-manager will get a better reception than the other ex-manager. I'll let people.
Why would Corberan get a bad reception though? Why?
I bet. Well, to be fair, I bet Corberan
have a little think, Steve. Have a little think to yourself, right? What happened at the beginning of this season? Just rewind your mind back.
Well, has he not been proved right in a way. I know he kind of
Well-
walked out, but was it not probably the right decision if the team wasn't
Well,
back?
it might have been the right decision for his own pocket, but it wasn't the right decision for the football club, and he's part of the reason why we find ourselves in the position we are now. So, you know, he might have been proven right. I say he's a great coach. You know, I've no issue with that, but you know, to leave 3 weeks before the season, I can never forgive him for that, because that put us into an absolute hellhole of then, you know, looking for a manager. Obviously, we thought Danny Schofield was the right appointment. That turned out not to be, but that put a lot of pressure on Danny, and he were never going to turn the job down. As you know, a nice bloke and town legend and all that, he were never going to turn it down. So no, I don't have any sympathy for Corberan.
But didn't Wagner ditch you in the Premier League?
No, because that situation was very different. Dean Oyle was very ill at the time in hospital. David was basically running the club on his own in terms of the football side of things, and doing a lot of work off the field as well to just get us through that second season. We knew we were going to go down, and he was tired. He'd lost all his energy, and to be fair to him, I don't think you'll get town fans really saying a bad word about him, to be honest, or you'd be very hard to find one. So the situations were very, very different in how the two managers left. One left just totally drained and couldn't carry on, and the other decided to ditch us and leave us in a situation where we were 3 weeks to the season starting. If he were going to leave, or he had thoughts about leaving, he should have left after the final whistle at Wembley Stadium on the 29th of May.
And to be fair, it's kind of tailed off just a little bit for him at West Brom as well, hasn't it? Since that new contract's been signed and all the kind of Leeds speculation. I mean, the loss to Watford, the drew at Blackburn, lost to Birmingham. It might not all be sunshine and roses there either.
Well, I think he will. He'll carry on at West Brom, and I would expect them to be one of the top teams in the Championship next year. You know, his coaching ability is fantastic, but his decision making in terms of how to leave things, is less than to be desired. So yeah, I think one manager will get a better reception than the other one. So, but the big games, we have to go beat them. I don't really care about, Wagner and Corberan in the two games. I cared about Neil Warnock and our lads who were on the pitch fighting for, 3 points on them particular days. I remember going to the Hawthorns and, Rajiv Van La Parra sticking one in the back of the net, and it was a great day out at West Brom. Not really a town that you want to ever go visit, but for that particular day, it was great. Nice Mackies across the road as well. It's a death trap. Is that road? It's like it's like them games, them old school computer games where you rush across the road when the cars are coming. Like one of them. There's no unless they've changed it. There's no crossing there. So
yeah, lethal, absolutely lethal.
Plain chicken.
Yeah, good stuff. So, I mean, it's amazing because obviously as a Leeds fan as well, and it's amazing what a new manager can do in terms of how you feel about the season. For example, on Saturday, I thought Leeds are getting relegated, and then come Tuesday, new manager, you think, oh, actually, there's life in us yet. As before Warnock came in, did you think you were getting relegated? And has he just completely changed it on his head? Do you think now that Huddersfield are likely to stay up with him?
Before Warnock came in, yes, we were getting relegated. Now that Warnock's here, we've got a chance of staying up. We're not definitely staying up. We've got a chance of staying up. Our fixtures are very hard. He's not got the squad that he'd probably like. We've got a lot of injuries still. So, I'm not making excuses, but these are the facts of the matter. And so it's going to be very tough for him. But we've got a chance. I do feel that the Wigan and Blackpool games may just kill us in the end, and the fact that we held on to the man that is Mark Fotheringham far too long, unfortunately. But we'll just have to see. Depends I mean, God forbid if we win at Burnley, then it's party time, isn't it, lads? I'll invite you both over. We can have a right champagne doing everything.
Oh yeah, the Route 1 party, that'll be good. Route 1 show party, yeah, let's do it. End of season, we could have actually, and it brings it home because obviously we've been covering the region on this show tonight, and we could have possibly, I think, five teams relegated. I think we've got Leeds.
Thought that is.
Subscribe for more content like this, more upbeat content like this. So
if you want a positive listening experience, don't listen.
What is it? Grim up north, and it is.
It is slightly worrying that you're not right. I mean, at this rate, potentially you're looking at Leeds, Huddersfield, Farsley and Avenue, and Liversedge.
Yeah,
Halifax Halifax is as well by the end. They're wavering somewhat under Millington, so you could be looking at basically just Bradford City and Guiseley having reasonably solid seasons.
No wonder you were talking about blinking Chelsea before. Chelsea and Man United. The West Yorkshire Sports Show. Yeah, you're having a laugh.
Can I just say, Mark Hughes is probably odds on to get manager of the season for West Yorkshire. So just let that sink in.
Oh, well,
what did I tell you, Steve?
I'm sure he'll be terrifically happy when you hand him trophy at the end of the year.
We're going to get Simon Parker to do it.
After they've not got promotion. Oh, you failed to get the playoffs, but you have won the West Yorkshire Sport Football Show's Trophy of the Year. Well done.
Well done on finishing 12th. It's the highest finish across the region.
That's the highest finish.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to drop even lower, aren't we, and look at teams like Campion and stuff to get any good news stories this way out. Anyways, never mind. Onwards and upwards. Things have been transformed. You got Neil Warnock in. It's all looking rosy. I'm sure you're going to get a good result against Burnley, Steve. Come on, what are you predicting?
5-0 to Town. No,
you said it now. That's it.
No, I think 3-1 Burnley, but that is a positive result in terms of
respectable.
Respectable. I
reckon you can take a point there. I reckon you can get a point.
Yeah, and you also thought that Mark Fotheringham was manager of the year, so
no, I didn't.
It swings and roundabouts, old Chris, isn't it, lad?
I wonder where he's going to pop up next. It's going to be fascinating.
Oh, probably 5th Albanian league or something. That's probably standard. I tell you what, Chris, he's probably, if you get him on here,
I think he'll be Jesse Marsh's assistant. I really do. I can see them as a partnership somewhere.
Can you imagine if they tipped up? He was tipped to get Southampton job, wasn't he? Which were absolutely mad, but it just. Yeah, I don't know, but good luck to him anyway. Good luck to him and Kenny Miller. I'm sure that they'll have fun somewhere in Scotland in the deep dive of Scottish football, or back to Germany where he thinks he's an absolute legend.
Exactly. No arguments with that. Steve, pleasure as always. Thanks for coming on, mate, and we'll speak again next week, pal.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks a lot, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye. There we go, the Huddersfield Hub, Steve Downs. And that's just about the end of the show there. We've clocked up 2.5 hours there, Chris. We've covered the region. Hopefully, things will turn around for a few of our teams, especially Bradford Park Avenue. You've got to feel for Lewis Sale. I mean, he goes to every game, home and away. He's travelling all round, following his team. And you just hope that, it can turn around, because we don't like to see a sad Lewis, do we?
We don't, and as we just kind of touched on, given the situation for a lot of the clubs, we really don't want, well, preferably any, but we'd like to avoid any relegations come the end of the season. But it could be all or nothing at this rate. Hopefully, it's nothing that can be. Hopefully, this weekend at least will bring some positive results.
Absolutely, yeah. Potentially 5 or 6 relegations, just bonkers. It can't happen. It just can't happen, Chris. Anyways, if you've been watching on the watch along, or if you're watching the video later, please give us a like and also subscribe to the channel for more content covering football across West Yorkshire. We'll be back next week. I've been Stephen Brown. Alongside me has been Chris Bell. Chris, thank you very much, mate.
No worries at all, mate. Pleasure as always.
And we'll speak to you next week.